with most of you at this point, but if I haven't, I get to serve as the director of an office here called Service Learning and Civic Engagement, and we love what we do, and we can't do what we do without all of you. And as you'll hear throughout our time together this morning, we see you as co-educators. We see you as partners in the process of educating our students. So it's really important that we're all on the same page, especially as we start a new year. We have these type of workshops once a semester, including summer, obviously, and then fall and spring. And each time, we usually start the workshop with some refresh information, either new employees to the organization that's always been with us, new organizations that have just recently started partnering with us, or any combination in there. Even some of our organizations that have been with us for many, many, many years appreciate this information just to remind themselves, oh yes, we're starting the fall semester again, here's the cycle, here's what we need to remember. So it's really good, bless you, for us to all be on the same page as we move forward. A couple quick housekeeping logistics before we dive in for the morning. If you need to use the restroom, it's kind of tucked away, so if you head toward that main door of the building, and then turn left and go down the hallway, it's all the way to the end of the hallway there. There are drinks, so the water, juice, and little breakfast snacks back there. Feel free at any point that I'm talking or anyone's talking, feel free just to get up and help yourself or use the restroom. Keep it somewhat informal here and just enjoy our time together this morning. We will have a lunch mix and mingle at 12:15, so hopefully you saw that. I encourage you to stick around. One of our biggest, every time we survey folks after one of these workshops, one of the biggest things that people are thankful for is the chance to get to know one another. So yes, we have a lot to share with you as FGCU, but you often start to make connections where you just really end up very thankful that you had that opportunity. So we do have folks on Zoom as well. So we have a great tech team that's in here making sure they can hear and all of that. But that is the reason that we'll all be using mics, is so that our Zoom folks can hear us as well. So I think I covered all logistics. Any big picture questions before we get started? All right. As a show of hands, who is with an organization that's been with us for a while, but you are new to that organization? Great. Okay. Who is with a brand new organization as far as partnering? Like that organization has not partnered with FGCU before. Great. Okay. And who is a veteran? You've been doing this many, many, many years. Excellent. So everyone else, keep your hands up. Everyone else in the room, look at these people. Those are your new best friends, and us. And really, we are one community. Obviously, in Southwest Florida, we're one community, but here as well, in our partnership and in what we're trying to do with the students and for you. We will talk this morning about how service learning is a win-win-win. We'll talk about what that third win is, but it's a win-win. It's a win for the students for many reasons, and it's a win for you, and it should be both. And we see it that way. You should see it that way as well. So you should never feel like you are sacrificing something that you are working toward in order to serve our students, and the reverse is true as well. We always want it to be a win-win. And we'll talk about how it's a third win really for the region and the university in just a little bit. All right, so hopefully, did everybody get an agenda as you walked in? Either you printed one and brought it, or you have one in front of you, I should say. On this agenda, you'll see a QR code in the upper left corner. If you're not familiar with QR codes, that's what that funny little square is in the upper left. It's a QR code. If you open the camera on your phone, almost every phone that I know of now reads QR codes. This will take you to a digital version of this document. The reason we do that is because this will serve as a resource guide for you for hopefully semesters to come. Everything is hyperlinked, or I should say many, many, many things are hyperlinked. Anything that's blue, if you printed it in color, is hyperlinked. And that takes you immediately to what it is talking about, what we're talking about. So if you want to follow up with, we're about to talk about our 3 offices that are in this department. If you want to follow up with any of those offices, you can click on those hyperlinks and go immediately to our office websites. Our office websites are designed to serve you 24 hours a day. So every answer to every question that you can think of should be there. And if it's not, let us know. We'll either point you to where it is or we'll make sure it's on there. But all three of our offices really strive to make sure that our websites provide all of the answers to questions that you might have. So, point being, definitely use the digital version as well, even if it's not right now, and hold on to that. Also, when you came in, if you didn't grab one, you don't need it right now, but grab one of these cards on your way out for yourself, for others in your organization, as well as other organizations that you may interact with who are currently not partnering with us. It goes over everything about how to start a partnership with FGCU as a nonprofit or government agency, as well as the resources that you have as a current partner. So make sure you hold on to that. And then last but not least, hopefully you picked up a fun sticker, a 3.75 sticker. Everybody pick up one. If you didn't, pick one up on your way out as well. Pick multiple up. We actually are trying to get rid of those because, why do you think we're trying to get rid of those ones? Yes, we work on a fiscal year, a state fiscal year, so we're July 1, and we calculate our service learning hours on that same fiscal year. And so we just calculated from the previous year, and we are at 4.4 million hours. We had our highest 1 year of service learning tracked hours ever, and so we're really, really excited about that. So we are in the process of reprinting stickers, reprinting a lot of banners and things across campus. We're really proud of that. But again, this is something we can't do without you. We can't get our students out in the community without great community partners. All right, so our department, Experiential Learning and Career Development, is the name of our department. You'll meet in just a little bit the senior director of our department, and if you've been around a while, she was actually in my position before this. You'll meet her in just a little bit, Jessica Ray. So she oversees a department of 3 offices that you see listed up there. Career Development Services is led by Rose Fuller. So if you are ever looking for part-time jobs, full-time jobs, anything about hiring our students, or just anything career related, helping our students maybe write good resumes. Maybe you have a student you've been working with for a long time and you want to make sure that they get a job and have a great resume and are prepped for an interview. Her team does that every day, all day. So sometimes students will say, oh, it's okay, I had my Aunt Nancy look over my resume and she said it was great. Well, Aunt Nancy might be great at what she does, but unless she is a career professional and she looks at resumes every day and she keeps up with year-by-year trends, it's better to send them to an office on campus that is what they do all day, every day. I can tell you what was appropriate on a resume 2 years ago. Well, I should say what was not appropriate on a resume 2 years ago is totally acceptable now. There are things that I'm like, really? You can do that? Yes. Okay. Post-COVID, that is acceptable now. So things change year by year. So you really want to help your students that you're working with, which are also our students, get as prepped and ready for great career success as possible. The next office listed up there is internships and cooperative programs. If you were with us in March was our last workshop, you heard an entire hour-long presentation from that office about how you can have and how you can benefit from having interns. Internships are different. They're very different experiences than service learning. So sometimes nonprofits, we tend to get it more from nonprofits, call us up and say, I'd really love a social media intern. Because everybody thinks college students know social media. They don't all know social media, but sometimes they do. And so a lot of times an organization thinks, I just need an intern, and they can handle that. Interns need to work under an expert in that field. So if you want a social media intern, then they need to be working under someone who works in your organization as a social media expert. The focus, so the partnership is the same parties. We have the same parties involved. We have a nonprofit or government agency, and we have an FGCU student, both with service learning and internship. So the parties involved are the same. The purpose is different. The purpose of service learning is for students to bring skill sets that they already have to serve you and to get tangible experiences in that process. The purpose of an internship is to develop the student and to give them and help them gain or refine skills that they maybe don't currently have or that they don't have to the level that they need yet. And so the purposes are different. So they really need to be working under an expert. So there are many times that the internship office will push you back to us and say, hey, since you don't have a full-time marketing professional for this student to work under, let's look for a student who already has these skill sets who can help you in that regard. And then last is our office. So we have existed at FGCU, or I should say the service learning requirement for graduation. So hopefully everyone knows, maybe we should start there, that service learning at FGCU is a graduation requirement. That requirement will be shifting as far as how it lives out in the student experience in the coming year. And we'll make reference to that a couple of times throughout our morning here. But please come back to our workshop that is scheduled already for November 3rd, when things are really rolling out about that shift. We will go into great detail as to what that shift looks like. But all you need to know right now is that service learning is a graduation requirement, meaning everyone you ever meet who has a degree, an undergraduate degree from FGCU, has engaged in service learning in the community. And every student currently here has that requirement between them and graduation. And so come on in. Hey, how you doing? And so part of being a really great partner in this process is knowing that, understanding that, and helping our students reach that. And what that sometimes means is making sure they're tracking their hours. You'll see our big banner there that says, make your service count, track your hours each semester. We preach that to students constantly, that they should be tracking all of the hours that they are doing with any nonprofit or government agency. Our students can serve with any nonprofit or government agency in the entire world. So we have certainly students who live in other countries. They go home and they do service there, or some students who travel abroad and do service abroad. They go to other states. But for the majority of our students are focused right here in Southwest Florida. I share that, though, because some of your agencies I know have pieces of your agency that are beyond just Southwest Florida, and our students can gain a lot from working outside of Southwest Florida as well. But for the most part, our students are really focused here in Southwest Florida. So these three offices really serve as somewhat of a pipeline. Service learning often leads to internships, either directly with that agency or through connections that you all bring to the table. It's not uncommon that a service learning student working with you is doing a really great job and you want to help them, and you can say, oh, you're an accounting major. Hey, someone on our board of directors is at an accounting firm. Why don't I connect you with that person? So all three of our offices do work together constantly. And so a lot of times those experiences turn into internships and then turn into jobs, again, either directly at that agency or through connections that you have. So be thinking as well, when you interact with a student who is just coming for a couple hours, maybe they're doing a one-time experience, or they're just coming for a couple hours on a Saturday morning, and you think, I'm never going to see this student again. It is more likely than not that if they have a good experience with you, even on just a little teeny 2 or 3 hour experience, that they're going to come back maybe again as a volunteer or as a service learning student. Or when you need to hire, you can reach back to those individuals and say, hey, you already got a taste of what this agency is like, what this organization is like, what we do. Would you like to come back and apply for this position? Those are great names to hold on to. Anyone who ever serves with you, those are our students. One of the reasons that we all strive for career readiness, over there, for career readiness, is that we operate, much like most of education in the state of Florida and other states, under performance-based metrics. And what that means is that there are a set of 10 metrics that every state public university that they're up against in order to get money from the same pot. So all 12 SUS schools, state university schools, we are all trying to get money from the same pot, and we're all graded on the same report card of these 10 metrics. One of those metrics is job placement or placement into grad schools. So if you love FGCU and you love our students, you want to get them jobs not only for their own sake, but also for the sake of the university. When more of our students get jobs within 6 months, they're getting jobs of 30,000. They just increased it from 25,000 to 30,000 in the metrics. So getting jobs at a starting salary of 30,000 or more, that helps us a ton as a university. So I always share that because everything's connected. And so if you know that piece and you know how important it is, not just for the student, but also for the university, it might be on your head more when you are talking with many other people in the community. We know that you all and many others who aren't here, we have about 400 partners that we work with on a regular basis. And we know that you all make this community run. And if we can educate you on the things we're working, like our context that we're working within, then the better we all are. And we know and respect the fact that we are a massive neighbor in this community. The better neighbor we can be and the more successful we can be as a university, the better the region is and the better you all are. And so really it just goes back to that win-win-win. See if it'll go. There we go. Maybe. All right. So going just a little bit into our office. Oh, now it's going to go crazy. Okay, so there's our team up there. I serve as director. We currently have a vacant position, and we are in the interviewing stages for that. We are still accepting applications through FGCU Jobs, so if you know anyone who would love to be our coordinator of service learning, this is entirely student-facing, so helping all of our students reach that graduation requirement. We are still accepting applications. Lisa Page, many of you know she's been with our office for a long time, and she's been in sort of different roles over that time. Her current role is as coordinator of student progress. What that means is that she helps students cross that final finish line of the race toward that graduation requirement. So there are many students who do great work with your agencies, but they don't track the hours. She's knocking on their door saying, hey, you're about to not graduate on time because of this. So she'll help. So what that means is you may hear from Lisa saying, this student says they served with you 3 years ago. Did they serve with you 3 years ago? So part of success with our partnership is keeping really good records so that you can refer back to those and really help Lisa help the students. Kelly Bernardo, you met out there. She's currently checking folks in. She's our program assistant. She helps make everything run. She's helping the entire team. And then we have a really great student assistant team. There it is. So you can, I know you can't see the words up here, and that's okay. I just want to point out that everyone in gray is a student, and there's only the 4 of us in white that are professional staff. And we are serving all 15,000 students here. We're trying to get them to that graduation requirement in a really meaningful and beneficial way. We are serving about 400, 450 and growing community agencies, nonprofits, government partners like yourselves. And we work with about 270 to 300 faculty members every year who integrate service into their courses. And part of the shift in that graduation requirement will actually take the number of faculty that we're working with up immensely. So the 4 of us work with all 3 of those populations, the 15,000 students, the 400 community partners, and the growing number, currently around 300 faculty members. Why that's important for you to know is our emails are very full and our voicemails are very full. And just like yourselves, we're wearing many hats all the time. And so we really, truly try our best to respond to you as quickly as possible and get you the information you need. But please be gracious with us, just like we try to be gracious with you, because I've also worked in nonprofit for several years, and I know what it's like. So I think we're all in a similar boat. But I'd love to show this because there are 4 professional staff, but there is a full team of students. What that also means is we have really great students that we are also working on teaching career readiness skills and many other things. And so you may hear from one of our students, our student leaders, like Jonathan out there, or Paulina, if you met Paulina. Hi, come on in, come on in. And they are really trustworthy. They are able to give you the information you need. And so sometimes that is the best source for you to get an immediate answer if you need it. I do always show on here that we have, I don't know if my light's working, but we have trip leaders up here. And why that's important to know is if you are interested, you can let me know that you would like one of our weekly service trips. So sometimes students are a little uncomfortable going out completely on their own to an agency that they don't know, to people that they don't know, to maybe an area of the state that they don't know. And so we try to make it a little more comfortable by bringing together groups multiple times a week. So we pay a student, a student leader, but everyone else on the trip is volunteering. They're getting service learning hours, and they're coming out and serving with you. You may get similar students week to week. You also don't have to commit to come every week or to have our students come every week. But if there's whatever need you might have, we can usually somehow turn that into what we call a guided service learning trip, meaning one of our students is guiding that trip. and we just keep it open. And during the school year, we try to have 4 or 5 different trips every week. So that's a whole operation in and of itself. So what is service learning? Well, I mentioned that it is a requirement here. We'd love to point out that it's not only a requirement, but it is fully integrated. So we are one of only 2 public institutions in the entire country that have this requirement for all graduates. There are certainly institutions across the country that have it for maybe the social work majors or nonprofit management majors or something like that, but we have it for every student, which means it's integrated into everything. So we do have it in our courses, as I mentioned, student organizations, fraternities and sororities, and independently. We're going to have a panel here at 10 o'clock, so very shortly, talking about how best to connect to student organizations and fraternities and sororities. So I'm going to kind of breeze through this for just a minute. But independently, some students may just contact you completely on their own and say, hey, I'm just interested. And then sometimes they'll contact you and say, I'm contacting you as part of a class. So they're going to be coming to you on any number of different areas, from any number of different areas. The graduation requirement, it's important to know that it's either 40 hours or 80 hours. So a student who comes in as an upper level transfer, meaning they brought in 60 academic credits or more from a different university, their service learning hours requirement is only 40 hours. And anyone who comes in as either a lower level transfer, so they did less than 60 academic credits somewhere else, or as a first time in college, FTIC, first time in college student, their service learning requirement is 80 hours. Our percentage is about 86% of students who graduate far exceed their requirement. So if their requirement was 40 or if their requirement was 80, but 86% of all of our graduates, and that percentage keeps increasing every year as well, far exceed that requirement. And so we know that once students get engaged with you, they keep at it. They love what they're doing. And that's part of our work, is to find them things that they love. One of the things that we talk with students all the time about is, if you don't like getting your hands dirty, don't sign up with an organization that either picks up trash or puts trees in the ground. That's not your thing, and that's okay. Sometimes they feel guilty about that. Oh, thank you. And so they sometimes it's just a matter of having that conversation where they start to say, oh, yeah, okay. And so we do talk with them all the time about the sustainable development goals. Instead of using just kind of passion areas, we'll usually start the conversation with, what are you passionate about? What are you interested in? And sometimes they're ashamed to say, like, I really like gaming. Like, that's what I love doing. Well, who else loves gaming? Teenagers. Do you know there are a lot of teenagers? There are a lot of programs in this region alone that serve teenagers and would really like to play games with you. They would really like to do that. And so just getting them to think differently about service can be really engaging. But once they do and they get engaged with something they're passionate about, we see that far exceed. He gave me this clicker and then he left. Oh, there it is. Why is it a requirement? Why do you think FGCU would have this requirement? I mentioned a couple of reasons, but remember, we're already performance-based metrics. We have all these other requirements. No one in the world is telling FGCU to have this optional graduation requirement. So why would we make it why would we add a barrier? I whisper that because people think that. I don't think that. But why would we add a barrier between the students and graduation? Engage them in the community, right? Get them understanding that there's a community out there. It's not just a bubble. Yeah. Work experience, exactly. The career readiness. Yes, that's another reason. So getting them in the community, breaking them out of the bubble. If you've been with us at all, we'll mention it here briefly, but if you've been with us at all, the active citizen continuum gets them thinking beyond just the member stage, just their world, as well as career skills. Yeah, those are some big reasons for sure. What about when they get out there, they see maybe a need and they can coordinate something themselves to get out there and make a difference? Yeah, it's that skill to take initiative, to motivate others, sometimes for the things that you believe in. That's a skill set that I think we all need, and we all need to know how to do respectfully. Yeah. Networking, an open story that I know from my experience in college, it is absolutely terrible trying to find and meet new people while you're just trying to focus on getting good enough grades stats. Yes. Yeah, Rose Fuller and her career team probably has the right percentage, but we just recently were looking at an article, and there's some massive number of job placements that happen, or candidates that get the job because they knew someone in that organization, or their resume got noticed and it's a massive percentage, and I don't have that. I apologize, but yes, that's a huge reason as well. Yeah.
Health benefits, many proven benefits for your health for volunteering.
Yes, we were pushing that hard during the peak of COVID. We're like, hey, get out there. This is healthy for you. And that's a really great point. One of the things that happened during COVID as well is just like employers started to realize that employees can do really great work without ever stepping foot inside the office. Nonprofits and government agencies started to realize that as well. And so we have a lot of virtual opportunities now for students, and I would ask you to consider what your organization can do virtually, or have our students do virtually as well. Do they need to really come to your office to help you answer the phones or check email? Like, can you forward that? Can you do whatever? Yeah. Yes. So trying out different careers. One of two things usually happens, or we see one of two cases usually with new students. Either they know 100% what they want to major in and what they want to do, or they are completely lost, and maybe they've put something down as their major, but they're still really lost, or sometimes they just claim undeclared. Both scenarios, we want service learning, or we know that service learning can help them figure things out. So if we say to students, if you're the student who knows 100% what you want to do, let's get you a taste of that in order to make that happen quickly. You're coming from, we got another clicker. All right, we're going to go through all the clickers. Thank you. And so, we always use the example of a kindergarten teacher. A lot of students come in and they say, I want to be in the classroom. I love little kids. They're amazing. They're so full of energy and curiosity, and they're great. And we get them some experience in the classroom. Sometimes it's confirmed and they're like, I do love this. But sometimes they say, that is not the life for me. And that's okay. But we want them to learn that earlier than later. And right now, their internships and their practicums and things that get them those real experiences don't always come in the first couple of years of their college experience. For the students who are just unsure, we try to get it boiled down to a couple options and start getting their feet wet in those areas. And again, that serves you well, and that serves the students well. Great answers. I love this. Okay. So we always point out these three areas of passion, major, and career readiness skills, like I was just mentioning, as areas that students can explore through service. Passion seems obvious, but it's not always, sometimes it gets lost in our language because we're talking about the career readiness stuff and all that. So sometimes we do have like an accounting major who is very passionate about animals. Like maybe they love cats. Like that's their thing. They love cats, but they don't get to touch that in any way in their major. And so we can find unique ways to bring the two together, or they can just go and have time with cats with a lot of different agencies that serve that. So we can usually find those connections for them. Yay, it's working. All right. So there are 4 types of service that we encourage you to think about when you're engaging with our students. Most agencies think immediately about direct service. The number of requests that we get for this Saturday, we have a gala. Can you have, this is usually word for word what I get. Can we please have 20 fraternity guys come and set up our chairs and tables? Yes, we can certainly put that out, but if that's the only way you're engaging with our students, I always say, if you've been to my other workshops, you've heard this analogy before, but it's like standing at a massive buffet. You're at a Golden Corral, and the only thing you're eating is a couple green beans. Are those green beans maybe good? Probably. They're probably seasoned in a whole lot of things. But you're missing everything else up there, including the dessert. So we want you to really engage with our students in a way that serves all needs that you might have, many that you probably haven't even thought about. So when you look at these 4 types of service, yes, they can come set up chairs for you. That's fine. But, and I'm going to go through the 4 types and point out some other ideas here for you as well. But we want you to think about these. Direct service is anytime anyone is engaging with the person, place, or items, things, plants, animals that are directly intended to be served. So if I'm doing direct service with like Tree City USA, I'm putting trees in the ground. That's their objective. That's who they exist to serve, the trees going in the ground. If I am at a food bank, I'm giving food directly to someone who is hungry or in need of food. So everybody kind of gets that. Indirect service is everything that happens around that to make it happen. So the logistics of, again, let's say a food bank, checking people in, looking through paperwork, inventorying food, bagging and boxing up food, prepping it to go out places, using the forklifts, all sorts of things. So that's direct and indirect. Everybody got that? Okay. So you can already start thinking about at least those two, what you might directly have students engage with, where they're doing direct service with the issues that you focus on, and indirectly the things that they can do. And that is where you can also start to think about virtual things, in that indirect sphere. What is it that they could really, can they write? We'll get to it. Advocacy. Advocacy is really just raising awareness or educating. So I often ask agencies that I'm working with, if you had money to hire an additional staff member, what would you have that staff member do? A pretty common answer is we would hire an education coordinator, an education manager, or someone to handle the education and awareness. Another question I ask is, do you feel like 100% of people in Southwest Florida know who your agency is and why your agency exists? If the answer is no, there's a lot of work under advocacy that our students can do for you, because that means you are not known by everyone. We want you probably want to be known by everybody, and you want everyone to know why you exist so that they can support that work that you're doing. So our students have been trained to do trainings for you. Our students have worked for and against pieces of legislation for agencies. The Sierra Club is a really great example. They're always my number one example for advocacy because they do it. I've seen them do it really well, where they bring in students who are interested in the issues that they're fighting for or against, and they train them. Usually it can be like a half day or a day-long training, but then they're working with those students potentially all semester or for a couple of semesters. So yes, it may be a half day of your time to train our students to present about your organization or to know your organization really well, but that's a pretty good return on investment of your time. If you give a half day or a day to our students and you get at least 15 weeks of work, maybe 30 weeks if they stick with you for the following semester as well, or what usually happens is they stick with you for many years. Some of our agencies that work against human trafficking, it's something a lot of our students are really passionate about. They do this very well, where they train our students to go out and do awareness trainings for educators to know in the schools, what does human trafficking look like, for church officials to know in their congregations, what does human trafficking look like, even for store owners in the stores at Gulf Coast Town Center or Miramar, for store owners to know, what does human trafficking look like? It's not, again, I don't know that world, but I've sat through portions of these trainings, and it's not uncommon for human trafficking to be happening in these storefronts and in and around where we're at every day. And so their goal is more people who know about this, more people who can recognize the signs of it, the better we can fight this issue. And so they're training our students to do trainings out in the community. So this, again, goes back to that question of, like, if you don't have the money to hire an education coordinator, an education manager to go out and do all those trainings, or even if you do, even if you have an education manager, that person is one person, and they can only do so many presentations and so many trainings. If they can train an army of our students to do that for you, how much better and how much further along you can get toward your goals. So that's a lot under advocacy. Oh, and if there's legislation, we've had agencies like Sierra Club where there was a piece of legislation up about a highway coming through, and they really engaged our students and taught them how to fight against certain things through legislation that was up, how to talk with elected officials, those are great skill sets. When we talk about the career readiness skills and we talk about communication, now a student can sit in an interview and be more likely to get a job because they have tangible experience about how to professionally communicate to elected officials and for and against issues. And That's really great career readiness skills that they're getting. The last one up there is research. So this is probably the least utilized, but the most appreciated once agencies use it, once they engage with our students in research. And under research, it's where students can either take data that you already have and turn it into something useful. So we have a lot of agencies that will say, well, we've been doing surveys of our participants for years, but they all sit in this drawer over here because nobody has time to touch them. Anybody have that? You have a lot of surveys sitting around or data in your computer, and you just don't have time to really crunch the numbers. Our students are doing research in their classes already. However, what often happens is the faculty member says, just pick a topic. I'm just here to teach you how to research. I'm here to teach you how to do the research, collect the data, and turn it into a presentable format at the end. So often the faculty don't care what they pick as their research topic. We are changing that slowly but surely and talking with each of those faculty members to say, hey, maybe instead of just telling them they can pick anything, they can pick this. But what that means is we need things to fuel to the faculty members. I would say 99% of the time, when an agency says, we could really use a research project done on this topic, and I take that to a faculty member, 99% of the time, the faculty member is very excited about that. And they want real tangible things. They don't have the time to come to all of you and ask you, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? So we try to be that conduit of information to our faculty. So if you are already sitting here thinking about either data you have that you need crunched and reviewed and turned into something presentable that you can use maybe for grant applications or just on your website or to educate and advocate well, let us know that. Or if you need data collected and then that second step done, we have classes that do that as well. They're learning how to scientifically process all that information and get you accurate information at the end. So they're doing it whether you submit ideas or not. We just really want them to use things that are going to serve you well. Any questions about those 4 types of service? Or any ideas or past experiences with those 4 types of service that you want to share? Great. Okay. Our frameworks. All right. So I'm not going to go into great detail on this because we've had entire workshops on some of these frameworks in the past, but I will review them just so that we're all on the same page. They're also, again, they're hyperlinks in your document, so you can go and you can actually see the individual images for each of these frameworks. But the active citizen continuum, let me see. While I'm talking about. Hey, Jonathan. Are you able to bring up the active citizen continuum on the screen? Okay. I want to bring it up for you just so you can see the full continuum from left to right. But again, it is hyperlinked there. So the active citizen continuum is our way of helping students understand where they can go within community engagement work in general. So most students think of service learning as volunteerism. It can be that by definition of FGCU's requirement. By true definition of service learning, it is not. It is connecting what they are studying or what anyone is studying and what you are learning to service in the community. It is truly that hyphenated word. We keep that hyphen there for a reason, and it's really to connect the two. Volunteerism, there's a kind of continuum from volunteerism to internship and to career readiness, and volunteerism is all the way on the left. So you're going to see here in a moment how the continuum, the active citizen continuum, is 4 stages. And the first stage, and if you have it digitally up in front of you, you can look there as well. But the first stage is the member stage. And that's really where, people living in the member stage, they're not necessarily like bad people. We tell students all the time, because students love to think the left side of the continuum is bad and the right side of the continuum is good. And I want to be as far on the right side as possible. And that's not necessarily the case. But the member stage is the starting stage. And as long as you are breathing, everyone's breathing in any way, shape, or form. And we all sort of live in this in different regards to different topics that we may or may not touch in our daily life. But it says not concerned with their role in social problems. So when I take something off the shelf at Target, am I thinking about the jobs of the people who have to replace that, or the trucks that get it there? Or how did it get there? Did it get there via electric truck or diesel truck or gasoline truck? And And how does that impact the price if I choose this item over that item? And what if I choose something that has the word vegan on the front of the box? Is it better or worse for the environment? How does that impact the farmers? And there's so many things. When I'm driving on the road, am I thinking about, like, if I just cut someone off, do I think about how that impacts that person for the rest of their day? Do they go home and yell at their spouse and their kids because now they're in a bad mood because I cut them off? Or, there's so many considerations every minute of the day. And so I say we all live in this a little bit because we can't humanly think about everything that we touch and do. But in the member stage, it's really just that bubble. People who are really in that stage, they're just thinking about their sphere, their world, their life, and again, not necessarily bad, but not concerned with their role at all in anything happening in the community. The volunteer stage, though, is where a lot of our students come to us. 25 years ago, when FGCU was created and we opened our doors, offices like ours were introducing the concept of service learning to students and the concept of being integrated into the community. Now, that is pretty commonplace, which is a great thing. So middle school, high school students, they often have requirements of their own around volunteerism. They need to do so many hours before they can graduate. So when they get to FGCU, oh yeah, I've done this before. Or they ask the question, why do I have to do this again? I already did this. We usually say to them, FGCU service learning is different than volunteerism. And we show them this continuum, and we show them how there are stages beyond volunteerism that we're trying to get you to. But it's good for them to understand that they may have engaged in volunteerism in the past, but they might not have gone beyond that. And so in the volunteer stage, they're just doing something. This is really the first stage of doing anything in the community. And a lot of times this is like, my roommate asked me to go on Saturday and help pack food at the food bank. And then they went, they did that, they came home. They didn't necessarily learn anything about food deserts or food insecurity or why people need food. And it's really not until the next stage, that conscientious citizen stage, it's really not until there where they start digging deeper into the root of an issue and start learning and chewing and deepening and thinking about all of that. But like I said, some people never make it to this stage. They just sit in the volunteer stage. I've seen volunteers, young and old, who just volunteer every single Saturday at the same place. And they never dive deeper into the issues that they're seeing every single Saturday. Maybe no one prompted them to think more about it, or maybe they chose not to because the issues are just a little hard to process. But either way, we encourage our students, and we do everything possible to get beyond the volunteer stage. And that is talking and learning about the root of an issue. And so when we talk about the root of an issue, I usually use the example of a beach cleanup. Beach cleanup is beautiful. It's fun. You're literally on the beach all morning long. Like, how bad could that be? It looks great on Instagram. You take your picture with 12 bags of trash at the end with all you and your friends. But does it really care about human trafficking? And I don't see a goal up there around human trafficking. Well, you will find human trafficking actually under 3 different goals. So when you click under each goal, you'll see targets. And those targets encapsulate a lot of information as well. So we point students to that as a way to understand that there's a global, again, getting them outside their bubble, there's a global effort toward the things that they care about. The next framework there is the NACE career readiness skill. We've talked about that. That's something we push everywhere. Whenever you submit a need or an opportunity to our students to get engaged with your agents, we will always connect it to a career skill. And the social change model, we won't go into at all right now, but feel free to click on there and explore. Thanks. You can jump back to the PowerPoint, please. Next on the agenda here is ways to engage with FGCU students. So I think probably everyone in this room has already visited the Getting Started page, or else you probably wouldn't know about this workshop. But if there are other agencies that you ever engage with at all, please send them to that page. So the Getting Started page of our website, our community partner database, again, when you have a minute after this workshop this morning, I would encourage you, make sure that your database page is always updated. Our students, especially in the beginning of each semester, so we're about to have the beginning of a semester, they use that database a ton. The next one is the Service Learning Opportunities database. Again, this is all hyperlinked in your agenda, so I'm not going to click on it right now. We talked about the guided service trips. When you click on that link, you'll be able to see all of the trips that we currently have for guided service trips. class-based projects we talked about. We're going to talk about student organizations. We do offer social media takeovers of our social media account. So if you're interested in having your agency take over our account for a day, just email me and I'll get you the information. Typically what that means is you'll submit 3 to 5 posts pre-written with pictures that you want posted, and then we'll post those for you throughout the day on a certain Friday. Hi. And then annual events, you see the annual events listed there with dates. And again, that's in your printed version as well. But coming up is our WOW Day of Service. So we have 2 days of service every fall. One is WOW, which stands for Weeks of Welcome. It's usually the first 10 days or so of a student's time at FGCU. And so we have a day of service on August 27th. And then 2 days later, we have our Fall Service Learning Fair. We have already opened another room. So if you've ever been to our Service Learning Fair, you know we're typically in the ballroom. So we are in the ballroom again this year. And how many people have already registered? Okay, so if you haven't registered, we just opened another room next to the ballroom for even more capacity. As a lot of things shift for service learning, we're going to have more and more partners be getting involved in unique ways. So know that the Service Learning Fair will be bigger and better than ever this year. And we also have the date for the Spring Service Learning Fair up there as well, so January 17th. Again, it's all on your sheet as well. Soaring with Service, I won't talk about that right now. It's an event for our students. We will contact you, some of you, to get involved with that. We only have space usually for about 10 partners to be involved with that event. So we'll contact you about getting involved with that one. Make a Difference Day is our second day of service, where students come out, again, like I was saying before, where they come out for just a couple hours, but that's where they get their feet wet with your agency. So even if you think, well, we don't normally have anyone at our agency on a Saturday, so we really can't do that, I encourage you in every way possible to take part however you can, even if that means maybe paying someone overtime to come open up and be there. Because so many students do our Week of Welcome Day of Service or our Make a Difference Day, our MAD Day of Service. And when they are later in their student organizations, they're in their fraternities and sororities, they're in class, and they have to do service as like an assignment or it's required or something, everyone in the group looks at each other and they go, where do we want to go? And they usually go back to where they've already been. So if they haven't been to your agency as part of one of these days, they're going somewhere else because that's where they've been, that's where they know. So I really, really, really encourage you to, if at all possible, take part in our Make a Difference Day. Our next community partner workshops are listed up there as well, November 3rd and March 15th. So you can put those in your calendar. And then a big event in April, definitely put this in your calendar, April 21st. It is a showcase of all the work that our students have done across campus in 4 areas. One area is community engagement. So all the work that students do with you this entire academic year, through their classes, through organizations, all of that will be showcased there. But it's also a showcase of all the research that happens on campus, all the internships that happen out in the community, and all the leadership opportunities that students are doing out in the community. So it's a massive showcase. It's a really cool opportunity to come and just beam with pride about everything that is happening between FGCU and the community and for our students. I always put this note at the bottom, not all student connections are created equal. It's important to find your best fit. I mentioned that buffet earlier. If you're a vegetarian, don't go to the steak portion of the buffet. Sounds obvious, right? But sometimes we do have agencies who just mismatch with the opportunities. Not every opportunity is right for your agency, your organization. Another great buffet analogy, if you try to eat everything off the buffet, you're going to get sick and you're not going to like buffets anymore. So we try not to let that happen. Sometimes it does. Sometimes we get brand new agencies or brand new professionals at those agencies who want to do everything. They want to connect with a fraternity. They want to connect with 3 classes. They want to connect with all of our events. And they can usually make it through fall. They get usually to February or March, and they get sick. They're like, I'm doing too much. So we try not to have you do that. So there may be times that we encourage you to reel it back a little bit, depending on how long you've been working with students and have you worked with a class before? If not, then maybe you don't want to take on 10 classes at once. So just a little bit of info there. Just kind of quickly going through this. I mentioned that it is a graduation requirement, and so that does mean that all of our students have to track their hours in a system called Eagle Service Network. They do enter them, and you get an email saying, you get actually 2 emails. You get an initial email that says, John Smith says that he is partnering with you. And the email says, you do not need to do anything at this time. The next email you get is when the student is done serving with you. Either the semester has ended, even if they're going to continue on next semester. We ask them to do it at the end of each semester. So either the semester has ended or their time with you has ended. So if they finish in October, but the semester doesn't end until December, they should track it in October. You're going to get that second email that says, John Smith has said that he has completed 30 hours with you. Is this true or not? And you just have to click yes or no, or is this accurate? When you click yes, it immediately goes onto the record as verified. If you never click anything, then they sit in limbo for a long time. And remember, I mentioned Lisa Page. She's going to be knocking on your proverbial door and asking you to click yes or no on those hours. Yeah.
So I had 2 students started with me yesterday. Are they aware of this? Because they asked me how can they check everything. Which I told them just to document it themselves, and then I'll send them. But it's possible for them to be aware of it.
Absolutely, yeah. And the biggest, boldest button on our web your hours. When they click on that button, they will see a video guide about how to track their hours. They will see a written guide on how to track their hours, and they have access to literally every answer to their question. So if you can just, can you show the homepage real quick, Jonathan? Just so they see. There you go. So track your hours, the button all the way there on your left. Tell students to click that. And that gives them the guides they need, the video guide, the written guide, all the information they need about how to track their hours. What is a really great practice is as you engage with our students to collect information. So again, you're tracking, when they're there or not. And so that you can follow up with them later if you have open job positions or you need volunteers at a certain time or something. Always collect their information. And then to tell them, hey, when you track your hours, you're going to, like if you want them to put down your email to verify, or you want them to put down someone else's email address at the organization to verify, but tell them ahead of time. And another really great best practice is to give them your own deadline. So we have a lot of agencies that do this where they say, hey, so glad you served with us today. I've got you down for 4 hours from today. Make sure you go into you can even just say, into the FGCU website and track your hours. When you do, put down my information or put down this. And then you can say, you need to track your hours by the end of this semester. If you don't say that, or you don't give them you can pick your own deadline. But if you don't give them a deadline, it's not uncommon that it's 3 years later and they're knocking on your door, or someone else who is now in your seat because you're not at that agency anymore. And it gets really hard for the student, but also really hard for your agency to handle. So give them your own deadlines, at least the end of the semester, if not an earlier deadline for yourself. Great, thanks. Yeah.
I've had some students who are so paranoid about it that they want to track they have a weekly shift and they want to track it weekly, which is not okay. I'm like, do it like once a month or by the semester, but don't do it every shift if you're coming once a week.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll repeat it just for the folks on Zoom that if you have a student coming on a weekly basis or a regular basis, encourage them to just track it all together at once at the end of the semester instead of tracking it every single week, because you will get 2 emails every single time they track it. So after you've collected the names of the students, communicate that back to us. If it's an opportunity that you submitted into our database, you'll get an email from Jonathan, actually, that asks you to fill out a survey and put the student names in there. If you didn't post it through us, the end goal is just that we get the information that you have, because we like to follow up with those students and encourage them to move beyond the volunteer stage of the active citizen continuum. But we can't follow up with them about that or about tracking hours if we don't get the names and email addresses from you. So once you've collected them, if you can send them to either myself or submit them in the form that you get. And then it's a great idea to follow up with the students via email as well afterward, to remind them about tracking hours, to send them additional opportunities that you might have, and to share pictures and fun things. The more you can build that relationship with them, the better off that you're going to be. Just a couple of quick notes before we move into our next piece of the morning. 1 hour of time is one service learning hour. So sometimes agencies will get real desperate. It's Friday and your group canceled that was going to set up your gala stuff on Saturday, and you're really desperate, and you maybe are tempted to be like, hey, we'll give you double hours. Come serve with us and we'll give you double hours for whatever you serve. We cannot do that. An hour has to be an hour, a half hour has to be a half hour, and so forth, because we do send all of this data. I mean, one, ethics, but the other reason is that we do send all of this data up to be accurate all the way to the state. Again, it's a graduation requirement, so it connects to all of that. So we need it to be accurate. I've mentioned the workflow a little bit as to when you'll get emails. When students submit your agency, that they're working with your agency, you'll get one email and then you'll get another one. So I just wanted to point that out. The student's role versus the community partner's role. I always put this in here because sometimes community partners will feel bad that they don't have enough work for a student to do. And they'll start like really feeling bad about this, which is very kind of you, but you don't need to. The student's role is to reach out and find different opportunities. So if you truly don't have an opportunity or you don't have 80 hours of work, you don't need to feel bad about that. So work with the student in what is comfortable and correct for your agency. You don't need to feel bad about not having all of that. When to expect heavy communication times. So there are really 2 times every semester that you might get a lot of communication from students. At the very beginning, kind of 3 times, but at the very beginning of every semester, students are often looking for projects for their classes. So if you are interested in that, you really will want to be responsive within the first 3 or 4 weeks of a semester. You're going to get a lot of reach outs if you're in our database and you're a presence at the Service Learning Fair. And then about 6 weeks in, this year it's September 23rd, is our seniors graduation deadline. So if anyone is trying to graduate that semester, they have to track all of their hours and have everything in the system by, again, this semester, it's September 23rd. So that's another time that you'll hear a lot from students trying to track their hours. And then, last but not least is the end of a semester. So if a student has been working with you as part of a class and they're coming up to the end of the semester, you're going to hear from them about tracking all their hours at the end of the semester as well. Yeah, so we've got that. Oh, there it is. September 23rd is a date to put down, as that's when seniors have to have everything tracked if they're trying to graduate that semester. And then February 10th is everyone, and you'll get more in the spring because more people graduate in the spring than in the fall. But February 10th is the date in the spring that you'd want to put down in your calendar to know that the week prior to that, a couple weeks prior to that, you're going to get a lot of panicked students who forgot to track 2 years ago, but really need those hours. I'll go over some of these updates a little later so that we can jump into our panel. One is accurate and one is not. We won't make you guess. If you want to introduce yourselves, and then we'll go in from there.
So hello, my name is not Julie Gleason. My name is Michael Raffo. I serve as the coordinator for fraternity and sorority life here at FGCU.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Lindsay Johns. I serve as the assistant dean and director of student involvement here at FGCU.
Excellent. You all know me. You just heard from me for the last hour. So one of the things that we often hear from organizations like yourselves is, I really want to connect with, well, the number one thing I get is, I really want to connect with a fraternity or sorority. And then the second thing I hear a lot of is, I really want to connect with an organization that can stick with us for a while. And sometimes agencies feel like they're rebuilding that relationship with students every year, which somewhat we feel that as well, because that's the nature of higher ed. But I want to first have you each talk about what are the best ways for them to accomplish those goals. So if they're looking to, and maybe we'll start with you, Michael, if they're looking to connect with a fraternity or a sorority specifically, and I always ask them the question usually of, why specifically a fraternity or sorority? Because sometimes they just think that's the way to get a group of students. And so that's kind of also then where Lindsay can share. So let's start with fraternity and sorority.
Yeah, so I would say the best way to connect is absolutely through our website. So if you Google at any point, you don't even have to remember the link. If you just Google FGCU fraternities or Google FGCU sororities, it takes you to our website. And if you scroll down, it breaks it down by each organization. It has the contact name on there, and it has the email address as well for that organization's like president. That's generally the best form of contact for those organizations. We tend to update that pretty consistently. So semester by semester, you'll see updated individuals like on that document on the website with that information. We generally tend to get that information out there, but if you're having a hard time reaching out to those organizations, which we know can be difficult sometimes over email with students, we encourage you to reach out to our staff as well. So if you go to like the FGCU FSL homepage and you scroll down, there's a contact information for myself as well as our director. We work directly with the students. We have GroupMe, texts, emails. We see them in person consistently. So we can reiterate that message that if you are reaching out to these organizations and not hearing back, we can absolutely kind of be the middleman in that sense and get you in contact with them.
I think with student organizations in general is how does their mission align with what you're trying to accomplish, right? So if your organization is focused on food insecurities, right, then what organizations would be the most appropriate that are going to help them see alignment with your group? At the end of the day, they're college students. They started their club or organization for some reason, whether that was socially or if it's connected to their major or it's connected to your agency for whatever that function may be. And so making sure, I would say first and foremost, that you're reaching out to the right group, right? I don't oversee sports clubs, but like our sports clubs, they're competitive. A lot of the outside of practice that they do is fundraising, predominantly because they have to pay for equipment, they have to pay for travel, they have to pay for all those things. So the bandwidth of that club to come and do extended service somewhere is probably much smaller than if maybe you work at a nursing home or something like that, where we have a group of students that it's like Cards for Children, and like that is the premise of their organization. So I think sometimes it's doing a little bit of that footwork of like, why am I reaching out to this group? Is it because I'm looking for a pulse and I need 10 pulses to show up one day? Or am I looking for a group of students that would be passionate about what we're trying to align with? We have a software, it's called EagleLink. And so most of EagleLink is public, especially specifically looking at the student groups themselves. And you can actually sort based on organizations that have a service, like service is one of their pillars. So groups get to self-select, like we are athletic, we are religious, we are, service oriented, we're academic based, like, and then you can actually sort by how they self-identify their group. And then from there, it's reaching out to them. I think I see this happen, and I apologize if I'm jumping ahead, is the student also needs to see value in what you're going to bring to their organization, right? Because a lot of times it's like, so what does my group get out of? And they don't necessarily always see like, you're going to have team bonding opportunities. You're going to have an ability to reach to the broader community. Sometimes you really do have to color by numbers that for them, and help them understand like by doing this XYZ, engagement with our organization, these are benefits that we see that your organization will have that align with it. You can see every constitution that they have. Every RSO's constitution is public. So you peruse through there, grab a couple little nuggets of what it is that they're here to do on the campus and make sure that it's a group of students that aligns with what you're trying to accomplish, I would say.
An RSO is Registered Student Organization. So there are sometimes student groups of students who meet together, but they're not an RSO. So do you want to explain the difference?
Yeah. So a registered student organization, basically you have to follow and adhere to the policies in our office. You have to have a constitution. You have to have a certain number of officers. You have to go through specific trainings, and you get resources provided by the university because of your status as a registered student organization. You can rent space for free. You can make buttons in our office for free. We'll print for you. You'll also have the ability, so long as you are not an exclusive organization, meaning that there is some type of membership requirement. You must be female. You must have a 3.0. You must be all of those things. If you don't have any of those components, then you're eligible for student government funding. So your student, as a registered student organization that's not exclusive, any of your events, activities, initiatives are open to all students to participate in. So there's like a subset within RSOs. It's like the student government, but that wouldn't necessarily impact you all because student government funds have to go back to students. They can't go to another group. And then sometimes you'll have groups of students that sometimes it's based on colleges that they've just never become a registered student organization. Our office doesn't necessarily work with them, so you would not find them on EagleLink. I'm trying to think of an example. Because most of the groups.
Yeah, everything I can think of.
But then not within our office, but still connected to our office because they're student government funded, is the sports clubs and intramurals. So our sports clubs are competitive teams. So like if Michael and I wanted to get together and play basketball with two other students through an intramural league, those are all going to be internal FGCU students. If it's a sports club, then they're going to compete against other schools. So they're not our Division I athletes, but so our hockey team is probably the most notable. So our hockey team is still considered, they're not a registered student organization. They would be a registered sports club, but still connected with and affiliated to the university.
So when an agency wants to connect with student organizations or fraternities and sororities, talk about the time of year that's best to connect. Talk about the methods, because one of the things I hear a lot is I've emailed them 10 times and I haven't heard anything back. So what connection time and process and methods, best practices?
Yeah, so I would say there's a couple like really good ways to get connected with fraternities and sororities. A lot of our organizations are on a January to December like time frame for their officers. So they will do elections for their new officers, usually like near the end of the fall semester. And then when January rolls around, they have like a new executive board. I generally say around February is a good time to reach out to them because they have their foot in the door. They kind of know like what they're doing with the first month in, because generally when they get into their positions, I wouldn't say overwhelmed, but they have a lot going on, so they may miss any emails that you send them. Another important piece is that all of our organizations fall under a governing council, which the council kind of oversees like what those organizations do, ensures that they're meeting certain expectations, and those councils meet on a biweekly basis, every single one of them. They all meet Monday evenings, so if there's ever an opportunity that you want to join us virtually or in person to kind of present on any service initiatives, all of the chapters that fall under those councils have a delegate present and can bring that information back to their organization. All of the councils are always open to have speakers during those meetings as well, and those take place like throughout the entire semester, each semester. So there's not like any time that you're missing. There's not really a good or bad time to come in. We generally just say to avoid near the end of November because of elections. But besides that, anytime that a nonprofit wants to come in and talk about like what they're doing, all the chapters are there. You can get as much information out. You can use as little or as much time. They'll ask any questions that you might have. And that's a really good like in-person, face-to-face interaction from that standpoint.
And I usually give the analogy of, think of the councils as kind of like an HOA board of like, you can come in and talk to the board at any time and it represents all the people under them. So you can either come in and talk to the councils or you can try to connect directly with the individual fraternities and sororities. Yeah,
for instance, like the Panhellenic Association oversees all of our Panhellenic sororities on campus. That encompasses about 800 women, but there's only going to be like 8 delegates at that meeting. Each one represents one of the chapters, but they represent in the collective the entire community at that meeting.
And then, like Michael was saying, they switch out in January. So sometimes agencies build a really strong connection in September, October, and then they're kind of like flabbergasted when they're having issues reconnecting with those same student leaders in January and February. And it's because they've transitioned out, and maybe they didn't tell you that they were transitioning out.
I think in RSOs that we work on in April to like a May to April cycle, understanding that most groups are not here during the summer. Student groups have to say, like, I would like to be active during the summer. And I would say maybe 15% choose to do that. Their level of activity is really just through orientation and the involvement fair. The first couple of weeks are a lot for student groups. They're trying to get their meetings scheduled. They're at the involvement fair. They're at weeks of welcome. So I would pretty much say like August and early September is like a no-go. And so I would say that mid-September is probably your best time to reach out to them, because you've got, similar to what Michael said, they were maybe elected in April, but they haven't really been doing anything until August. And so at that point, you also have the freshness of brand new students that have joined that may really be, oh my gosh, this would be so much fun. Capitalize on the energy of first year students, because they are going to be the ones that are so excited about everything for the most part. And then also understanding that projects in April and May are typically not going to be areas that our students can help with. If you're used to institutions that go to have classes through June, that's not us. Our students are pretty much gone by the third week of April. So no, I don't, depending on if it's like big end of the year galas and those types of things that maybe your organization has, a lot of our students aren't physically here. Like housing move out day is like May 5th. And so I think it's just also knowing the university's schedule of like many of our students don't live here during the summer. And so knowing kind of timing wise, what is going to be the most impactful part of your community partnership that they can be involved with based on the time of year. And all of our students leave for spring break.
And that, I drew earlier an analogy that FGCU is a buffet. You don't want to eat everything at once. You might get sick. You don't, right things for right agencies. I think the timelines that are being shared here are also really helpful to know. Like, probably don't want to eat cake first and then expect to enjoy the meal. Same here, of just because RSOs might not be the right to connect with in August and early September doesn't mean that someone else isn't. So those classes that I talked about earlier, I'd say 90% of our classes, they're looking for their partners first couple weeks, within the first 3 or 4 weeks of a semester. So if it's a buffet, you really want to focus on your class partnerships in the beginning of the semester, then maybe transition into your RSO partnerships, your registered student organization partnerships. And then, as fraternities and sororities switch out, it sounds like maybe February is the right time to be connecting with them. So any questions about that so far? Hopefully
Get involved at fgcu.edu. And so you won't be able to sign in because it's that sign-in feature is for students, faculty, and staff. But that main search bar, you can type in anything, and it'll pull up any organizations that have that, any events that we have coming up that are about that. Justin and his team do a really great job of any service projects that are being offered for students to obtain service learning hours. Every single one of them are listed on EagleLink. So we also direct the student groups there to find opportunities to be a part of as well.
So kind of building from the timeline piece, time is certainly one of the elements that will make a connection successful or not. What are other best practices for either, I'm reaching out to this organization because I think they align perfectly with our agency, but no one's responding to me, or I've been working with them for the last month, but now they've just disappeared. I haven't heard it from anyone.
I would say the best thing is, like I mentioned before, connect with our staff, connect with myself or Julie. We see students on a daily basis. We interact with them. We're ensuring that they're communicating with us, and we understand the struggle because one year I'll have a president who's really good getting, my emails or texts or whatever delivered and answered very quickly. And then sometimes I get ghosted for months and I don't know what's going on with the organization. So we are in the same boat as you sometimes. Unfortunately, we cannot control how our students interact via email or social media or text message. We just have to encourage them to be more professional in that sense. So you can connect with myself or Julie. I can give my email out after this as well and my office number, so you can always reach out to us. And then don't be afraid to be persistent when you're reaching out to these students as well. Like if they didn't answer once, you can send a follow-up email a few days later. Chances are they may have missed it, or they have just been busy with other things going on. That's generally the best way to connect with us so that we can in turn connect them with you.
And just like everyone in the world right now, students get a ton of emails. So they really, truly might miss it.
I would also say too, for every RSO is required to have an advisor. And so if you can, as you're building the relationship with the student organization, build the relationship with the faculty or staff advisor. And that's something that we're working with advisors on. I'm not a big proponent of signature advisors. Like, if you're going to invest in this, like, you need to invest in the students. So we're doing a lot more advisor development and those types of things. But typically the advisor continues year to year. So they are a consistent aspect of it. So where you can connect with the advisor is always helpful. And then when you talk about best practice of reaching out, and this is direct message them through their Instagram. Most of these student organizations have an Instagram account, and they are glued to their phones, and so they'll respond to direct messages. So if your agency already has a social media, connect with that group on social media. Make sure that you're following them. Make sure that they're following you. Do you say, hey, I just followed you, follow for follows, like engage with them. And then, because a lot of them will answer questions. Like, I know, like Programming Board, for example, which is, they do all of like the big events on our campus. That is probably that's the number one way students reach out when they have questions for Programming Board, is through Instagram direct message. And then I would also say, keep them interested and invested in what you're doing. And so maybe you're doing an event or an activity that doesn't involve them, right? So this day you all have a special project, but you are advertising it to the larger community. It's on Instagram, or there's a sign up somewhere. Ask them, tag them in that post, right? And so ask them to share it out, because then you're keeping yourself relevant and fresh in their minds. Because I will tell you, this is much more likely where they're at and where they're going to receive your information. It drives me up a wall, but it's the reality. And I think students need to see that our student organizations are bigger than just FGCU, because it's also an aspect of recruiting students in to be a part of that student club, right? So like, oh, wow, I didn't know that the Underwater Basket Weaving Society was connected to, XYZ agency in Fort Myers. I would love to learn more about them. I'm going to join Underwater Basket Weaving because they're telling me how I can get involved with XYZ in Fort Myers. Everything comes back to connections for students, and they're not, most likely an individual student is not going to find your agency on their own. But if it's something that one of our student orgs have helped kind of advertise, they're more likely. Feel free to tag us too.
Yep. I'll also say that all the fraternities and sororities are on Eagle Link, and all their advisors are listed on there. So that's an easy point of contact as well. Mm-hmm. And then, those organizations are highly active on social. Well, most of them are highly active on social media throughout the course of the year. So like Lindsay was saying, DMing them on Instagram or like tagging them in specific things gets them to interact on social media. That's what we do with our page, and it interacts really nicely too. Mm-hmm. And you can always DM our office's Instagrams too, and we can always kind of, again, be the middle person on those situations.
For sure.
I just wanted to say one thing that I've done that I found very helpful is I print off your academic calendar so I know when finals and breaks are. Because there's no point in reaching out to students during those times unless you know for sure the student's local.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So much.
For everyone on Zoom, someone was just sharing that printing off the academic calendar can be really helpful, so you know the times of the year. And I always point out, again, that buffet analogy of when do you eat what at what time. There are students who live in off-campus housing, and even some on campus, who are here over winter breaks, spring breaks, summer breaks, and sometimes those students are coming to our office panicked because it's winter break, they're graduating in the spring, and they know that deadline that I was telling you about before, February 11th. They know that deadline's coming up, and they still have 80 hours to do. And so it's not all students, but we do have students who come to us like that over winter break because they're like, I'm here, I'm not taking classes, this is my time, I got to knock out my hours. Like we talked about before, that's not the ideal situation. We would have wanted time to help them develop and do service learning right, but we are also trying to get them graduated. And so keep in mind that we do have some students during those times.
And I thought of a student group that is not an RSO. So they're going to kill me for this, but I don't work there anymore. So the Office of Housing and Residence Life, they have what is called the Resident Housing Association. And through that, there are 9 area councils. So those area councils, 5 of them are going to be for the first year communities, but 4 of them are going to be upper division students. And those councils are they'll run their focus is about like the community that's formed in their area. But when you brought it up, like Westlake Village is located right behind Target in Gulf Coast Town Center. So those students are much more ingrained into the FGCU community. Our students that are in North Lake Village are typically students that maybe they're taking colloquium, maybe they're doing these other things. So those area councils and through the Resident Housing Association would also be student groups that have a lot of structure. There's a full-time staff member that is assigned to each of those groups. They form every fall semester. So they'll get their officers late September, and then they'll go through April. And then housing also has a group. They're the National Residence Hall Honorary. That group is like, once you're a member the entire time you live on campus, and one of their pillars is actually service. But because they're not an RSO, a lot of times they aren't typically included in some of these pieces. But those are excellent student groups that have a lot of staff support. That I think, depending on what your agency is, they're very community built or very community development focused. They're very focused on like, how do you, because you're living on campus, but now you've moved here, right? This is your home. How do you invest in your home? So they would be good resources as well.
I would also add, we have an organization in fraternity sorority life called Order of Omega. It's an honor society within fraternity sorority life. It's like the top 2% of like all Greek students just based on academics. And they worked with Service Learning last year for Make a Difference Day in October, and having a lot of students go out to sites. So they're a group that are from all different organizations that come together, and they do meetings and they do programming, and they'd be a great entity to reach out to as well for service opportunities. And that way you kind of build a lot of community because you have people from all different organizations that can go back and kind of spread word of mouth, like what service they did, and then you kind of build a chain effect from there.
Michael was mentioning Instagram before, and I guess collectively we've been using some words like DM and tag. If that's all Greek to you, no pun intended, if that's all Greek to you, one of a great idea that some agencies have tapped into is actually having a class project. So when these classes are coming to you, or when you're at the Service Learning Fair and they're saying, hey, we're looking for a project this semester, what could we maybe do for you? Giving them the idea of, we're not currently very social media savvy. Maybe you don't even have any social media yet. That can be a class project where students work on that for 10 weeks or so in their class, and they can do these things. And it actually is maybe a little better that way because students know students. They know what is relevant on campus and how to tag and get noticed via social media on your behalf, so they can really be doing that for you. The trick of that is making sure that the last couple of weeks that they're working with you as part of that class, that they transition it either to you or to someone else who is going to keep that going afterward. Because just like we don't like when students disappear, students aren't going to like if you just suddenly disappear because the students who were running your channel are gone. So keep that in mind.
And you can have them use Canva to make different Instagram posts and flyers. Canva is free to use. Highly recommend for any graphic design or marketing needs.
Yeah. Does anyone not know what Canva is?
It is incredible.
Do you want to explain just real quick?
It's think of like Photoshop, but very user friendly. Not that Photoshop isn't, but I think it's a lot more user friendly. It allows you to put like a different size template like on a web page, and they'll give you like format and template ideas, and you can kind of create and design flyers based on specific type of events that you're trying to do. So if you're trying to advertise like a service event coming up and you're working to like clean up a park or something like that, you could like have a park theme in the background and like put the information on there, and Canva can size it for you so that it posts like on Instagram as a post, or you can make it like into like an Instagram story. Like it'll format it correctly for you, and you just download it and upload it to social media.
It's also not a bad idea to have students, if you're working with a class over those 10 weeks or so, have them teach you those things if they know those skills already. Yeah.
I was going to say, for anybody who doesn't know, you can apply to Canva for nonprofits and get a premium for free.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have education accounts too.
Great.
That's good to know.
You have to go to Canva for nonprofits.
Because I have a whole account, but they don't even know I have
Go to Canva for nonprofits and apply for.
So on Zoom, if you didn't hear that, Canva offers a free account option for nonprofits to get premium features. Yes. If an organization wants to create if an agency, a nonprofit or a government agency wants to create a student organization, I hear this occasionally of, well, this church has a student organization or this nonprofit has a student organization. How do we get a student organization too?
We don't have student organizations without student interest. And so we are very grateful for the Fort Myers community. I think that there are wonderful things here, but I think a lot of times what happens is you have one student that you have worked with, that you have a connection with, they joined you in high school, or it's one of those things, and so they go to start a student organization. That's not sustainable if there aren't other students. So it has to be something that is student-led, student-initiated. One of the things that happens is the benefits that you get by having a student organization are for the university. Like, so any of like fundraising that these groups do, none of that happens through the university. We don't have their bank accounts. We don't do anything with it because for the purposes of registered student organization, it's about that student's experience at FGCU. And so what we find is a lot of times that becomes not sustainable, right? So one student started it because, you wanted to work with it. And so I think oftentimes it's figuring out first, is there already a student organization that we could work with that will help strengthen that RSO versus starting from scratch? Because it's a lot of money to open a bank account. Like, because we don't give you seed, we are not allowed to give them seed money to go open up a Wells Fargo account. If they're in their first year, they're not allowed to request a standard student government budget. And so a lot of times, by the time they qualify for some of the other benefits, the student that was initially interested is gone. And so we see that a lot of things happen. And it's no disrespect to anybody, but our office, the university, is going to interact with the student and interact with the faculty and staff member that is a faculty and staff member at Florida Gulf Coast University. I think the same thing, and I'll let Michael talk about his, but those students, they are the ones responsible for adhering to university policy. Those advisors are making sure that the liability restrictions of the university are met. And so it's just being cognizant as an agency, like you can't take the liability on for like the university because at the end of the day, the student is the one doing that. And so if the students fall off, if the students graduate and there's nothing else, if I don't have 4 students to form the student organization doesn't exist, regardless of who they're partnered with. And so I think it's dependent upon like what the organization is, as to if they're connected to an agency. But I think sometimes we've gotten into this, like, well, we're just going to create a student group, but is there sustainability in that? And so we're more than happy to help students do that. But our biggest question for anybody is, how is this organization going to be sustained? That's why we've transitioned the way that we do re-registration, because students graduate and then we come back in August and it's like, well, what happened to sociology club? Well, they all graduated. And so,
and they forgot to recruit
new people. And so now we do the recruitment in April. That way, before the seniors have graduated, we know if that group has a plan to continue the following year. And so hopefully that will also help some of these groups sustain.
And I think that's what we're saying is that they do have a student organization has to re-register each year. It's not an automatic.
So on the flip side of that, if you're looking for a long-term partnership, fraternities and sororities, great place to look. I will say that they don't do as much service as they could, and service is one of their core pillars for a lot of these organizations. A lot of them, recruitment or intake, whatever type of organization it is a core tenet of what they do. They bring in new members every semester or at least once a year. So these organizations have been sustained on campus for a while, but a lot of them don't have like those long-term service partners. And I'm sure they would be more than happy to do that, because that's one that fills a requirement for a lot of them, that they have to complete a certain amount of service hours, not just for the university, but also for their national headquarters. So having that long-term partnership, if that's something you're looking for, benefits fraternities and sororities. For example, we had a fraternity last fall who I think partnered with one of the local high schools, like football teams, to like build like some different things for like their football area and like clean it up and like paint the fields, things like that, like do maintenance, and that was a long-term project they were able to do for the fall semester. They have members. A lot of these organizations can be as small as 4 members, with some of them being over 120 members. So they have the people power for some of them. And if you're looking for maybe an experience that's more intimate with only a few people, we have those organizations as well too, that are dedicated to specific causes as well. So definitely building that rapport and building that relationship with fraternities and sororities can go a long way. Because when that's built, it doesn't matter when the officers turn over. If that's something that's been ingrained in their culture for a little while, they're going to continue that relationship because they know this is what they've been doing to, like, one, meet that requirement, but also because they're passionate about it.
Yeah.
Returning to the student organization, RSOs, do you ever have general interests? And I'm thinking of it, if you had a group that was specifically interested in helping with hunger, and we had a collaborative, like Carrie Chapin Food Bank, Community Cooperative, Interfaith Caregivers, we're all food pantries, we're all food banks. Would we be able to have a collaborative effort as individual organizations working with the students that have the same mission, or would it have to be a one-to-one?
So, like, saying, like, could one RSO work with a number of different partners? Oh, absolutely. We try very hard not to say no to student groups. And what I mean by that, if a student comes to us and they're like, we want to have the biggest food drive that has ever existed on campus, how do we help you make that happen? That's literally, I was telling somebody earlier today, my nieces love yes days, where, like, everything you have to do is, our goal is to say yes. But what we work with the student groups is making sure that you are adhering to the university policies that connect with it. So the 3 of you couldn't just come here and have an event and there's no student group associated and you're using all the free space and all of that. The student, and this is where sometimes the partnerships have gotten a little muddy, is we're working through the student group but not with the student group. And that's where for us the learning happens with a student group. So how have you worked with these community partners, setting up, when is setup, when is takedown, who's arriving when, what are the core objectives? And that's going to be, and honestly, that'll be more footwork or more legwork on your end, because you're used to doing these things. These students aren't necessarily used to that. And so we do have a really good partnership with Campus Reservations that will help these students kind of navigate what are those things that need to happen. But our students also tend to wait to the last minute. So it's going to be like, oh, well, we need to have boxes in all of the residence halls and we want to do all of these things. Well, there's an approval process that goes through that. So I'm not going to say yes. Like, for me, I don't say, yes, Harry Chapin, you can put a box here. It would have to be a student group saying, we're going to put a box. This is our donation plan. This is how we're going to decorate it so it doesn't look like trash. This is how often we're going to pick it up. We have requirements for them of what they have to do to make sure that this is a thought through initiative. Because on more than one occasion, they're like, we're going to go do this. And then they have a really big box of stuff that we take to FGCU's food pantry at the end of it. So they can work with as many partners as they want, but the expectation is still that the student group follows all the university processes to make sure that all of those groups are approved to be here and in what capacity.
And really the big takeaway is that it needs to be student-driven, student-led all the time. So you're a great partner and support and potentially the beneficiary if it's like a food drive or something. But it still needs to be student-driven, student-led, student-initiated at all times. So, when they're putting anything together, and sometimes it's the reverse of what we've been talking about. Sometimes it's a group of students, I should say, a group of students who have been working with the same agency for a long time, but they've never thought, we could be a student organization and get access to all this other thing. They've been struggling to find space. They've been struggling. And in those moments, then I'm able to say, have you ever thought about forming a student organization? But again, the students have to form it. The students have to bring it together and just know that they're serving those agencies. So we have maybe time for one last question. Any other questions that you needed to know? Their contact information is in your agenda and up on the screen. It's Julie's up there, but I can also send you separately Michael's information. So, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you all for everything that you do with our students. We certainly appreciate it.
All right. So before we actually start our next panel, we do have a faculty member who's come in. I'm just going to introduce you real quick and let people know that you're here and what you do. If you want to come up, introduce yourself and the course that you have. If you're on our email list and you got my July 15th update email, I mentioned a GIS mapping opportunity. This is our main instructor for that opportunity. So I'd love, introduce yourself, your course, and what, oh yeah, and here's for everyone on Zoom. There's people on Zoom as well. You're famous.
Try. Hello guys, my name is Dhruv Bhatt. I work as a GIS specialist here at the Water School, and I also teach an environmental GIS class every semester. It is a basic course for the students to learn how GIS can help in different types of industries like environment science, wildlife management, ecology, even in business. There's a lot of stuff which maps can do. Anything you see around, if it has a location, there's something happening, then there's a location there. At that location, what is happening, things like that. So it's useful in a lot of senses. If you are trying to like go from point A to point B, that's all part of GIS. You create that stuff and things like that. So we are here to help. If you guys need any type of GIS help, any mapping help, my students and me can help out in the course as part of their project and things like that. So,
and Dhruv's class is actually a perfect example of what I was mentioning earlier, of faculty who, they need to teach their students certain lessons, and so they give them assignments that are hypothetical sometimes, or they tell them, go pick anything that you want to work on. And what we're trying to do is get more of intentionality behind those assignments and connect them to real needs in the community. And we just met and talked through a ton of things a couple weeks ago, and that's where that email blurb came out. And so we've already gotten some responses. We need more, want more. If there's any way that your agency can benefit from the work of GIS mapping, and I always tell people it's like when you're watching the news and you see the heat map of maybe the algae bloom, where it's at currently and what's happening in the waterways, and you see that on the 5 o'clock news. That's GIS mapping. That's what his students are doing. So it doesn't only have to be environmental things, but often it is used there.
Yeah, it's like the COVID dashboard. I'm sure everybody's familiar with. That's what we can create or help create for people. So things like that, anything which has to do with location.
Data tied to location.
Melanie wants to add.
Yeah, please.
I am Melanie Eichbauer. I'm the interim director of research, but I'm also a historian. And that's the perspective I want to take with GIS mapping. Mapping is spectacular. I use it in my own research for the movement of peoples and things, whether it's, for instance, migration of people, settlement patterns of individuals and family groups. This is all GIS mapping. So it has such wide applicability, both in terms of sciences, but also in terms of the social sciences and humanities as well. So think broad when you think GIS mapping.
And if you ever want help brainstorming, definitely chat with me, or we can connect you, and we can chat through ideas. But just wanted you to meet Dhruv before. I'm not sure how long you're able to stay. We'll have lunch at 12:15. Feel free to stay through then. Or
Yeah, I just wanted to come up and introduce. But
Perfect.
Sorry.
Excellent.
But you can definitely share my information, and they can definitely reach out. Or if anybody has a question.
Yeah.
Ask if you can pass the information on.
Yep. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So we're going to go right into our next panel, which then leads into lunch. So luckily, I know it's the panel before lunch, so everybody's kind of like, oh, when's lunch? But you're not going to be bored, because these are two of the most energetic women I've ever interacted with. And so if you want to introduce yourself, and then we're going to dive right into panel-style conversation questions about agencies working with students through research, advocacy, and indirect service, which we talked about earlier.
All right, so hello, my name is Jessica Ray, and I have been at FGCU for such a long time. I like to say that I have grown along with the university. I started part-time in 1999, and I am here for two reasons. Because my role now is that I am the senior director over experiential learning, which includes service learning, internships, as well as career development. But I'm going to be specifically talking about what the students are doing in my courses, because I started here as a part-time faculty member and I've never left the classroom. Even though my roles have changed and I've grown in my responsibilities, I love teaching and I love having my students learn through experience. So the service learning piece is embedded in all the courses that I teach. And a shout out to one of my former students, whoop, whoop, Jason in the back. So he can vouch for this. Anything I'm saying, it's going to be true. All right.
Hi again, I'm Melody Eichbauer, but this time not from a historian's perspective, but from the Office of Scholarly Engagement and Student Research, which is a really, really long, complicated way of saying the Office of Research. And where I've been at FGCU since 2010, I started as a part-time faculty and sort of just, I don't know, just never left and it stayed here. And it's been so exciting, as Jessica said, to see the university grow and change. My interest is embedding scholarship in classrooms, community partnerships, but also how could faculty who have an interest in engaging in community-based research, but they have no idea where to go. They just sort of wander around like, I'm really interested in this. And one of the things that I'm looking to do and working with Justin and J-Ray is how do we basically serve as the matchmakers and love connections between community-based partners and the faculty and their students who may have projects.
And that's, whoa.
I know, like all of a sudden, yikes.
And that's really starting to happen now.
Yeah.
Like these connections are happening and it's very exciting because sometimes our community partners are just so focused on the one thing that they do and they are thinking narrowly and there is so much more out there. And that is, I'm guessing what you already talked about or reviewed.
The buffet.
The buffet. But that there are 4 types of service learning. Perfect. And so we're here to represent the different types of service learning, not just maybe the one that you always use as your go-to.
Absolutely. So some of the things that we've been seeing in our office have been community partners who are interested in applying for federal grants or some sort of granting opportunity. They need a literature review done. That's our wheelhouse. Faculty, we do literature reviews all the time. We can survey what's been done, what projects have been done. How does your project fit into the broader scope of similar projects, but also bringing out the uniqueness of the project that you're doing and the benefit that you're going to have, which will make the application have a different contour to it.
And if they've never heard of a literature review, can you explain that?
Yes, a literature review is basically a fancy way of stalking other projects that have happened and what has been the objective of that project. How has it benefited? Where may it have fallen short? How does your project fit into others that have been out there? And so it's basically taking this broad view of a particular issue, for instance, and looking at how you're fitting into that and to make your application as strong as possible, to highlight the different areas that you might be doing that somebody else hasn't been.
Because if you're submitting an application for a grant for a project or even for your agency, and your application comes in and the person or team reviewing it, if they say, well, there's already 10 other agencies doing the same exact thing, then you're probably not going to get that grant. So what is it that's going to make you stand out?
And that's part of what this literature review is we will find what else has been done out there and situate your uniqueness and your great idea within that broader framework.
This is just like what Michael and Lindsay were talking about, though, too. If we're using, well, not we, if she's using terminology and you're like, I don't know what she's talking about, that's the whole point. FGCU is here to be a resource for you. And so just as if you didn't know Canva or ways to use social media to promote and educate the community, advocate for your agency or issue. Think about how you can tap into resources here, both students and the faculty that they're working with. And that's one of the beautiful things about FGCU is that the research isn't just done in partnership with the faculty. The faculty are encouraging and bringing in students so that they're learning from this process. So I would say it's a win-win-win.
Absolutely. This is a whole team effort. You may have an idea. I would like to study the parrots that are in Cape Coral Yacht Club.
They're there.
They're there. And I have a parrot, so totally that's where my mind's focused right now. He was very grumpy this morning when I left. Sorry. Anywho, so you have an interest in studying the parrots because you're looking at making sure they have proper care and whatnot. But you know nothing about parrots. This might be something that we can help partner with, because I'll know the faculty who are interested in animal behavior and they have a team of students. Then where we go is putting them in touch with you and letting you guys develop and build that lovely partnership.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
So I want to bounce between research and advocacy a lot. Earlier, I was explaining all 4 types, and we said usually people go to that direct service of, oh, I'm going to go serve at a food bank or a soup kitchen or something. And so they immediately think handing food to someone who is in need. But what are some areas, and maybe we'll start with Jessica, about advocacy, where you've seen, and I kind of explained what advocacy is, but are there some examples you've seen around advocacy?
Yeah, I wrote some down. I'll tell you why. Because when you're in the classroom and you're doing this all the time, it's happening all the time. But when someone's like, give me some examples, I had to take a minute and think back to some outstanding projects that students have done. But when I introduced the 4 types of service learning in my class, one of the things that I point out, because advocacy is not necessarily like a common term for them, or they're like, how do I go about bringing about change in a community, right? What am I, as an 18 through 22-year-old, for the most part, able to do to bring about change, right? So what I talk about with them is that people can't bring about change if they're unaware of an issue. You can't start at advocacy. You have to start with education. They get that. They get that you have to first themselves become aware of issues that are associated with each of your agencies, right? And then they have to figure out ways that they can educate the community so that the community is aware, because that's when the community begins to take action. And selfishly, as a teacher, I want them to be gaining knowledge and skills, right? So one of the things that I always highlight to the students is that when we're teaching them how to educate others, how to engage in service, how to influence others, we're giving them skills that aren't just helpful for this project this semester. I'm like, you're welcome. I am giving you skills for life. I said, there's not a day that goes by on this campus that I am not working to inspire others to join me, to join our team in our efforts. It's nonstop. I get called a cheerleader a lot because I'm always excited about the work that our team is doing. Always, always, always. And so if you look at Forbes, they're like, these are the 10 things we want our students to have. Okay. So if our students are engaging with the community in education, they are working on their written or their oral communication skills. They're working with you in partnership to better understand more, and then they're working with the community to help them understand. But on the Forbes list, which isn't on every list, what I highlight, it specifically says the ability to influence others. Yes, I do it every day, right? And we want them to be able to communicate and do that as well. So that education piece is huge. So then I started thinking about like, how have my students done this? Because I don't dictate it. What I say is, first understand what the needs of your agency are. But then I also say, I don't think there's a nonprofit out there that couldn't benefit from having their agency and their issue shared, right? Because the more people that know about what you do, the more people you can recruit to be a part of those that help you in your mission. So, I allow them to generate ideas collaboratively with you. And here's some of the things that have popped up. This is going to be just a list. But if you have questions after, or you have ideas to share, or you have projects that have been done in partnership with FGCU students that went well, share those with one another and out loud now. These are the ones that I came up with this morning. So, if you have events that you're doing in the community, like at, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the Southwest Florida Rabbit House Rescue, okay? They went out to an environmental event that was being hosted in the community. Well, they brought their table and our students worked in partnership with them to create hands-on activities for everybody that was participating in this event in our community to do rabbit-focused crafts, right? But it brought kids over. When kids come over, their parents come over. And then they had the educational information and brochures that can also be created using Canva. Remember, it's coming back to play now. On your behalf. So they can create presentation boards and be at events with you. They can create hands-on activities to draw in a crowd. They can create brochures. They can create brochures with QR codes that lead guests to your website. If your website needs to be updated, guess what? They have skills that can help you as well. Now, here's the deal. Some students are better at this than other students. That's why always I tell the students to have conversations with you. First, find out what your needs are. Second, share with you what skills they possess, because some are going to have such an interest in this. Or maybe they are taking a photography class right now. Or maybe they're majoring in PR or marketing, right? Journalism. So tap into their skills and knowledge. All right. So that kind of led to a whole bunch of different ones, but they can participate with you in events. They can actually also create events right here on campus. And I have had that done. We've had students present at the Eagle Family Weekend Research and Service Showcase. They can do tabling on a Wednesday afternoon and draw people into their conversation about your organization and your agency. So that tabling or those events can happen here. We've brought speakers from your organization to campus, and then that brings in an audience. We've had groups partner with Programming Board to show a documentary related to your particular issue, and then you speak at the end that gets people excited and knowledgeable that if they are passionate about this, there's a way that they can help in this very community. So these are just different ideas. And Justin had mentioned earlier too about if you're not knowledgeable or you don't have a great way to educate the public about who you are and what your mission is through social media, our students are savvy. Okay, they're savvy. And think about this. Don't just have them posting for that semester that they might be in my class and working with you. Think about having them create social media templates that then, just like Justin said, they educate you on, but then you have the resources. So if you're having a fundraiser, they give you the template that you know then how to manipulate, change dates on, but use that template. Or they can create a social media campaign. I even had two different groups I want to highlight. So a group that partnered with Gulf Coast Humane Society. Gulf Coast Humane Society worked with them, understood that there was a photographer and a journalism student that were in the group. They felt comfortable and gave complete access to the students in that class to create posts for Instagram. They didn't have any checks. They were the ones that were in charge. Now, if you're like, what? No checks? Yeah, other groups want to have checks. So my team that works with Lovers Key State Park works with the person that oversees. They meet weekly. They talk about the focused campaign of that week, or they develop a semester-long campaign. They have a deadline when social media posts need to be submitted to the person that oversees it, and then that person then posts it. So there's different ways to do it, but that is a wonderful way. And our students know how to do things that you might not. Even if you're like, I know how to post on Instagram. Do you know how to do boomerangs? Do you know how to get people to donate off your page? Do you know how to get people to respond? I don't. But my daughter does, and she's a student here at FGCU. So she knows how to engage. You can have people fill in blanks and answer questions for you, and that increases their level of engagement. For our partnership with Ding Darling and their Wildlife on Wheels, we had a group actually create a Wildlife on Wheels TikTok. And so if you're like, I hope y'all know what TikTok is, even if you're not on it, you got to know that that's how people are getting information and what they're looking at. And it can't be someone that's not TikTok knowledgeable putting something that's not TikTok worthy on TikTok. It's got to be something that's engaging and catchy, right? So tap into our students for that. If you have true advocacy and you need letters written to counsel men and women, if you have something, people to sign so that you're getting so many signatures, tap into our students. If they're having a tabling event or an event on campus, they can bring that right in. This will go with you. They can also include surveys. Surveys, that's when it connects to Melody and what she's going to talk about. And then the last thing I want to say is our students, some are English majors, some are journalism majors. Not only don't think narrowly of just social media, but our students can write for our own Eagle News. But I had a group that worked with the Naples Daily News because two of the members were journalism majors, and they didn't just have an article in the Naples Daily News. They had an insert that went out to 100,000 homes, and it was called The New Face of Homelessness. And they wrote articles in partnership with St. Matthew's House that educated the entire city about this issue. They wrote multiple articles, did interviews. Everything was checked and approved by St. Matthew's House, but 100,000 inserts went out. Wow. Wow for you and wow for us, because that got to be on our students' resumes. And when they were interviewing, they got to talk about that. So all impressive things. And then the last thing that I want to say is, if we're talking about educating others, think about ways that lesson plans could be created, depending on what it is. We have Shy Wolf Sanctuary. We've got the Talking Monkeys Project. They infuse education into their curriculum because, well, if people didn't try to have wolves and monkeys as pets, we wouldn't even need these sanctuaries, right? So it starts with education. So think about ways that you could partner with schools, after-school programs, boys and girls clubs, and our students could create lesson plans for and with you. Okay. See, I told you it was great. One big long list, but that was my brain dump.
That's
all
great.
Right. Oh, wait, one last thing.
Yeah.
And then I had a student group this past summer that they created an educational video for Keep Lee County Beautiful, and it is on their website. So they were recording for class purposes for an end of semester video, but they were like, if we're recording all this information anyways, and we've got all this great footage, why don't we put some music? Why don't we encourage others to do this as well? So it is currently on the Keighley County Beautiful, I think their Facebook page, and it may also be on their website. Got to check that out. So anyways, now I'm officially done handing it over to Melody.
Okay, wow. So I'm mentally like getting this all together to bounce off of Jay Ray with this, because education goes into research. And what you see happening so where our office goes is you have a particular question that you need to find out, you'd like more information about. You'd like a research project done. You bring it to you fill out a form, which Justin and I will be developing. So it's in the process.
For now, you can just let me know.
Yeah. And he bumps it over.
It's Match.com right now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Justin is thematch.com.
Literally, I didn't want to have to say Tinder, but it's been on the tip of my tongue the whole time. Like it's Tinder
it's
research.
Match. It's
Match.
Swipe left.
Sweet. Sorry about that. So basically what happens is this. You have a question that you're interested in and you would like more information on. What we can do on our end is we're finding the faculty and the students who are going to be working with you. Research is a collaborative effort. It is a back and forth conversation between what the agency and the partner is looking for, what we can do to help find the answers to the questions being asked. And this is the great thing, the education part for the students. They're working with the faculty on developing the question more based on your needs, based on your end objectives. What is the project? What is that project design? How is this to be executed? But then more importantly, it's that communication of the results. What are they? How can the agency use these results? How does this inform the community? But also the faculty and the students are able to give presentations and publish papers on this. Southwest Florida is a unique community and has unique issues, but we are all part of a larger society. And no doubt other people elsewhere are facing similar struggles. So how can our work between community and faculty and students maybe help another community elsewhere who's facing a very similar situation, maybe offer ideas to bounce things on. And this is the great thing about research. It's not just you sit in a lab or you sit in a library staring at ancient manuscripts, which is actually what I do for my research. But how is it that what I study which is the Middle Ages, is still relevant to today, and how can it help to inform today's society? This is also what community engaged scholarship is about. How can we solve and work towards a community solution to an issue, but how can this solution maybe help others moving forward? But it's also so important to the students. The students have to learn to communicate, and this is what I personally get really jazzed about. How do the students communicate to different audiences? It's communicating to your local area, maybe one facet of the issue. It's communicating to the scholarly community, maybe something different. Research is like boneless, skinless chicken breast. You can do a lot with it in a lot of different recipes. It's just who is it that you like? Who are you serving tonight? The kids aren't going to want chicken parm every night, but they may want something else. Somebody else may want a different facet of this. You can piece apart a project and deliver it in different ways, but it's so important that what the students are learning here are fundamental skills for moving forward. How to communicate with others, how to work with others, how to work as a team, but also importantly, how to work in setbacks. Things aren't always going to be easy. There's going to be side steps. There's going to be missteps. How do they bounce back when they make a misstep? Because everybody makes mistakes. But also, how do they sit back and think, okay, this approach did not work. How do I pivot? How do I move and maybe change up the way I'm approaching things? And this is where community partners are so critical in this. In every organization, no doubt you all have come across setbacks, probably even as early as 8 o'clock this morning, right? How do you move and switch and pivot based upon what's happening? Our students have so much to learn about that. And this is where, to me, this research partnership, not only is it helping a particular issue that impacts us all, but it can help maybe set a trend for elsewhere. But most importantly, our students are able to sit and learn some critical skills that they may not learn otherwise, and be on the ground and learning from others other than just their professors in order to do so. So from our end, to me, this is a massive win. We get to engage and help the community in an issue. Our students can give presentations such as our research day or the Florida Undergraduate Research Association. They can maybe publish articles about this. The faculty are able to get publications and give presentations, all while working within the local area to make the local area a better place.
That's great.
I love the word with, and it was said by both of us, and it's just been a focus, right? It's a true partnership, and that's what we want it to be. So for both, for advocacy, for indirect, for research.
Yeah, and that's what research is. It's not simply the question that is most burning in my mind. It's what is our partner, what do they genuinely need out of this partnership and want out of this partnership, and how can we both grow as a team? Because that's what research is. It's a team. You're never alone in a project. You're always with others, and learning those interpersonal skills for our students is so critical as they move to the job market or to graduate school. I mean, this is something they need to learn to play well in the sandbox. And I think that's what research does.
And those career readiness skills.
That's all research.
We highlight, and it's all experiential learning. So
can we just change career readiness to like research?
Career research.
But the research helps them be
career ready. Absolutely.
Service learning helps them be career ready.
Yeah.
Internships help them be career ready. That's all experiential learning.
Yeah.
So I was mentioning earlier that, you know, direct and somewhat indirect is what a lot of agencies go to first. I think we're hearing more about advocacy, how that can be so powerful, research, how that can be so powerful. I mentioned that for advocacy, I usually ask the question of, do 100% of people in Southwest Florida know that you exist and know why you exist? For research, though, I usually ask agencies the question of, are you effective as an organization, as an agency? Are you effective? And a lot of times people say, oh, of course I'm effective. Do you have the evidence to show and to prove to all the other people above you and on the sides and all across the state and across the world? And for grants. But grants isn't the only thing, because sometimes I bring up grants and people are like, we don't do grants, we don't have the time or the space. But just in general, even in your own marketing, on your brochures, do you have data on there to prove to the average Joe, that just random person walking through Miramar Outlets, you stop them, and maybe they do know about you, so they've gotten the advocacy piece. Do they know how effective you are? What is their general feeling? If you don't have the data, and sometimes that's qualitative, sometimes that's quantitative, meaning sometimes it's stories and narratives, and sometimes it's numbers and hard numbers. But if you don't have that, then this is all potential for you to grow in and to partner with FGCU in a new way. And sometimes agencies will say, well, I do have the data. It's sitting in a drawer. It's been sitting there for years, and I don't know what to do with it or how to do it. So if they have a bunch of data and they don't know where to go with that, what do they do with it?
They come and talk to Justin and I, and we'll help you. This is what research is about. It's taking evidence, it's taking data and coming to conclusions. It's coming to recommendations. It's coming to steps moving forward. It's maybe going to, we've tried this direction and we may want to shift directions. It's also, so you have the data, but then, so data can be quantitative, but I also want to argue qualitative as a historian. One of the biggest things that we've been really involved in, and I'm saying this from a historian standpoint at this point, the history of, right? Everybody has the history blurb of their organization. but what is the history of your organization within the Southwest Florida community and its impact? How can we help to tell this story better? As historians, that's what we do.
And
I study the lives of people. They're dead, yes, but their impacts are critical.
And that's what we use so much when I am working with the students to help them learn how to inspire others to join you and them in their efforts. We talk about putting a face on the issue. We talk about helping others picture who you might be serving or what your actions result in that can put that picture in someone's mind. So it can't be all statistics because people get overwhelmed, and literally there's research that says when people get overwhelmed, they shut down, they don't do anything. Well, that's not helping you, right? So it's a combination. You need to have the data to back up what you say and to show your, give you credibility, but you need to touch hearts to be able to inspire others to want to join you. So one of the ways we talk about doing that is putting a face on the issue.
And look at what we've even talked about today. I mean, I've shared with you that we're a graduation requirement since 1997, that we have 4.4 million hours, that 86% of graduating seniors exceed that requirement. Those are all data points and numbers that help back up and give some real evidence and some credibility to what we're doing. I told you that we work with nearly 300 faculty every year to integrate service, and that we work with 15,000 students. And I give you these numbers, but at the same time, we have like the banner in the back there, alumni spotlight of students and real stories, how this has changed their life. I encourage you, as you grab your snacks, if you haven't already, read the banner about how it changed his life.
And he started his own nonprofit.
Yeah.
And it's the presentation of this story. And this is something that the newest technologies in the field and using research can really assist with. Using things like GIS mapping to plot how settlement patterns may have changed. Where do we see the areas of greatest need, whether it's homelessness, whether it's food insecurities? How do we see a changing of this map over time? It's using techniques like Esri story mapping, which puts a visual presence on the issue. It's not simply how it's written to be understandable and engaging to a number of different audiences. It's how does this visually come alive? And this is research. It's not just in the trenches doing the data mining. It's now taking this information and making it digestible and exciting and engaging
and impactful.
And in 2022, when people have about 2 seconds of attention, how do you get that across?
Esri story mapping, this is something the historians have been into, as well as the social sciences. These are the visual and what story mapping is it basically is a program that allows you to see change over time in a visual format. It allows you to have pictures. It allows you to have captions. It allows you to basically sit and view the concreteness of how this issue has changed. So you're not simply reading about it, but you're watching it physically change. And you see a lot of this story mapping, probably the easiest being done is with climate and how a particular area has visually changed over, say, 20 years. This is kind of what you would see here, but you do it with the history of organizations, you do it with the engagement of an organization. There's so many uses to these things, and that's why I always call research the boneless, skinless chicken breast. You tell us what kind of dinner you want served, we'll get in the kitchen and work with you on what it is you need.
I know.
Yeah.
This is the chicken plate. Yeah. And Melody has said the word change like maybe 18 times.
Sorry.
And which is good because
Historian.
that's what it's about. And she's saying it's a visual mapping of that change. Everyone in here, every agency we work with is looking to change something for the better. And so if you're not able to visually share that out, we can help you.
Yeah.
Great. End of story. Mic drop.
Boom.
So let's turn it to you all for a couple minutes. What questions, thoughts? We've been talking a lot up here for the last 45 minutes.
They were talking before us too.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Talk to us.
Question.
So if I email both of you and just somebody respond.
Yes, you can email me and we'll get you started, and we can talk about what you might know that you want to go after, what you are unsure of. Yeah, great.
And so what's nice is that if you begin that conversation with Justin is going to say, all right, here are faculty that might align with that. Here are courses that might align with that. Here, there are research opportunities, Melody. What comes next with that for you?
Yep.
So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're definitely a team, and we're going to help bounce back ideas and help to develop a plan. We'll match make you.
Yes.
Dr. Melody, and this could be time consuming, but what would that look like to get your stamp on all my workbooks?
Let me read them, and then we will take a
So I
look.
could send you the PDF file.
Sure, of course.
And give me a stamp on it.
Depends upon what I'm stamping, but
Which is
let's powwow. Let's have a chat.
So strengthening families, using adversity to find purpose, critical thinking, and financial literacy.
Yeah, let's have a conversation. Definitely, let's have a conversation.
Excellent. Other questions, thoughts? Hopefully this is exciting, and it probably is an area that you haven't thought a lot about yet. Yeah.
I'm from Echo Global Farm, and almost all of our work is done through research. So having help with that would be nice, but it's also a very fine line because that's our main goal. They're very particular about who they let help with research. It has to be accurate. So I guess I've always been like, no, we can't have help with that because they're so particular about it. But that literally is what we do. So the more help, the better. So how would you suggest going about setting up a way to figure out what kinds of research students can help with, differentiating between the importance of projects and, who fits their fingers in the pie and that kind of thing?
So my recommendation on this is, again,
Can you repeat the question for Zoom folks?
Okay.
For anyone
So
else?
in short, Echo Farms, they are looking, they're basically research centered, but justifiably so because it's research, very particular about engaging with community partners to ensure they have the specialty needed to engage in that kind of research. How do we go from here? The short of the long is let's start conversations and start teasing out the knot, start untangling the knot one string at a time. First thing I'm always going to go to is the faculty credentials, the undergraduate and graduate courses they may be teaching, and where is that perfect fit? Because again, research accuracy is key. My guess is you are not wanting me as a medievalist who studies law engaged because I don't have the credentials. So how do we fit you with the right person with the right credentials based on the particulars of that project? And so I would say, let's start untangling the knot and seeing which directions to go in.
And there's always like the possibility of having them help with a tiny portion of a research project, not doing
Correct.
the whole project, but assisting.
Correct. And piecing out, and I think that's a big thing, is you want good bite-sized pieces, particularly. So I am huge, along with J. Ray and Justin, about course undergraduate research experiences. You're basically embedding a research project into a course. This is great because it's equity. Students who may not have the opportunity to engage in research because of family, because of job, because of a wide variety of reasons outside of the classroom, they can engage in research inside the classroom. The key is to be able to have a project roughly from start to finish, or at least at a decent stopping point by the end of the semester. this is, and being able to embed that in a 16-week course or into a summer experience is critical. And so sometimes we may need to chunk it off. And then maybe you would have, I could see a sequence of courses where ideally the students who are majors are going from one course to the next, engaging in the different facets of this question. So there are a lot of creative ways we can do it just based on, and everyone's going to be different in particular based on their projects and organizations.
Could you go into just a little bit more detail about the communities in transition projects that
Huge.
right. So this is exciting, and it's just right now a seed that's being planted in your brains because, well, it's summer now, and so the next one doesn't happen until summer. So, but this is an exciting opportunity and involves students, involves research, involves community engaged scholarship, which is why you come into play, and but a wonderful opportunity for both you and the students and the faculty.
So communities in transition started after Hurricane Irma, I believe. And the question was, how did the hurricane impact individuals in Southwest Florida? Well, that's obviously a lot. So, but now we have to tease it out a little bit more. And so where this project goes is it focuses on a particular community issue where the faculty member with a group of graduate and undergraduate students are working with a community partner on a particular issue over the course of the summer. And what the faculty are doing is they're engaged in this research project, they're developing it with the community partner, they're executing it in the summer with the community partner, and then at the end, the faculty member is probably applying for grants and doing publications, while the students are giving conference presentations, while the community partner is left with a tangible, whether it's data analysis. I think one project was working with students in Immokalee, and migrant farmers was probably our biggest project. You have others who have worked with tracking of rattlesnakes, which has led to a robust tracking and relocating of rattlesnakes instead of destroying of the snakes. These are the kinds of things working. This summer, we had a number of faculty working in Estero Bay on pollution levels. So there's a lot of different avenues that this can take, but it's always faculty, students working alongside partners over the course of the summer.
So it started hurricane-based. It is no longer
and we're looking to extend it even further.
Did you have a question?
I was wondering if you guys could expand and maybe touch more on the role that either you or the students could play in facilitating grant researches for organizations.
So what we've been doing on a couple of different occasions, and we're really early in all of this, so we're going to be learning right alongside the partners. But if an organization is looking up for applying for, say, it's a state, local, or federal grant, but they may not have experience with grant writing, they may not be comfortable with it, or they just want to make sure that the direction they're going gives them the strongest possible chance for success. This is where faculty who are in the field, in the research, can be working alongside in whatever capacity the faculty and the partner sort of develop to help on that process. Because as faculty, this is one of the things we do frequently, is have to apply for grants to fund our projects. So we can definitely be in partnership and just sort of be a help with whatever needs helping with.
And I've had, in the class that I referenced often is called Foundations of Civic Engagement. It's not discipline specific. Many of you are nodding your heads. You're like, yes, I've partnered with many a student in Foundations of Civic Engagement. And I've had in that class and in an honors class as well that is not discipline specific, community partners that have requested assistance with grant. But one of the things that I thought was really good, because if the students don't have a lot of experience, the first kind of like the bite-sized pieces, their job was to find the grants.
Right. Yep.
So I thought that was a great way for our students to get started and introduced into this. But then I had another group that was asked to write certain aspects of the grant, not necessarily the whole thing, but if there's a partnership with FGCU, and our students and our faculty, and you're highlighting that in your grant, well, the experts to write about that are the students that are involved. And so that's helping them better understand your needs, your issues, your mission, helping them with their written communication skills. And they were able to accomplish those grants. And we have different levels of grants, right? I mean, there's like $1 million grants. Yep. And then there's the grants that are in this community. And yep. There are even grants that are right here at FGCU. For example, our SAGE grant, which has to do with environmental sustainability. Can't remember what the SAGE stands for right now, but I have students that apply for that within courses, and that's helping them begin to develop those skills so that they're ready to take on more and more with you.
Yeah, holy cow. So I'm thinking about a whole grant writing course, because every grant has a different way in which it needs to be written and it has to be approached.
I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah, we're asked frequently about that.
And you know where we can do it, like starting in the spring?
Absolutely.
Honors. They'll do it just because
it's
on. We can start anything.
Yeah, we can do whatever we. Yeah,
that sounds great. Let's do it, and then we pilot it.
It's yes day every day,
yes day every day.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
I mean, but the idea of the different students from different disciplines, just because you have a major in X doesn't mean you're going to have a job in X.
Correct.
And so learning to be able to write different types of grants for nonprofit organizations, holy feather in a cap.
Well,
and working with the community.
Working with
sorry.
But see, and then they're engaging in service learning. They're gaining,
we're helping out. Oh my God.
Exactly. And on top of it, I just
our meeting for tomorrow just changed.
I know. Well, I want you to remind you too, and there is a class within Honors right now taught by Deb with the advocacy. Mm-hmm. So she had an idea, and it's an advocacy class.
She teaches students how to do advocacy in the real world.
Well, I'm also thinking of poli-sci in history who had issues in issues in issues in interdisciplinary.
The IDS courses.
Yes, it's the IDS courses. Mm-hmm. So
that could work.
Yeah, not just in honors, but it also impacts the majors as
so
well.
sorry,
didn't mean to ignore you guys.
Just like your opportunities are endless, ours are as well. Yeah. We get really excited about this, but I do. We got to pull it back together. Yeah. Lunch is coming together.
What's stopping people?
So if you have more questions, they're going to be here for a little bit. Are you staying for lunch?
I can stay for a little bit. Yep.
Great. We are going to take a short break, and during that time, we're going to set up lunch, get the sandwiches put out. As you come back from your break, we'll encourage you to grab sandwiches and sit down. And then we're going to just do a quick round-the-room introduction so that as people are eating, you can kind of bounce table to table and chat. So let's take like a 5-minute break, and then as you come back in, hopefully we'll have the sandwiches set up and you can grab those. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. So yeah.
We are going to transition in the next year or so to we'll still have these workshops, but we'll have an opportunity for you to get all this information without having a certain date and time. Like a lot of people wanted to come today, but they weren't available. So we're transitioning to that over the next year or two. Jonathan is actually working on building that module for us currently. So once that is live, we're going to offer it for a year, and then we'll actually transition to a required, like in order to be a partner, you'll need to know all this information. And that's going to coincide with that shift in the service learning requirement as a university that we'll be explaining in November. So again, make sure you're back in November on November 3rd with us. We'll be talking a lot about that. Bullet point number 2 is huge, 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 huge. Please make sure that anything and everything you would like our students to do with you, for you, in any way at all, gets put into our database. And there's a form that you fill out anytime you think of anything. Most of our veteran agencies, they just bookmark that form on their browser, and they pull it up every time they think of something and submit it all the time. The more submissions you have, the more our students see you in our database when they're looking. And when they see 10 things from one agency, it's like, oh, they're doing a lot of stuff. And then sometimes there's agencies that are doing a lot of stuff. We know that, but they're not submitting their requests in there. So when students look, the students think, oh, that agency doesn't really do much. And we know that's not the case. So we want to make it a match. If you're doing a lot of stuff and you need a lot of help and you want to engage with our students, get it into our database. And Jonathan's going to pull that up for us. He'll show you on our website where you can find the link. You can always email me. It's also in that July 15th email that I sent out. If you did not receive the July 15th email, you can send me an email. I will resend that to you. But when you're on our homepage, if you look at the 3 pictures down here, there's student resources, faculty resources, and community partner resources. Everything you may need is under community partner resources. Always feel free to go there and use the resources that are there. Everything we've talked about here today is also linked in here. But the very first button is getting started as a coeducator. Most of you have already done step 1 and 2 of completing the letter of engagement, so that, and then step 2 so that you can join our community partner database. But step 3 is what you can do over and over and over and over and over as many times as you have opportunities, and that is submit service learning opportunities. So you just click where it says submit them by using this form, and you'll see this pop up. And this is what a lot of agencies bookmark in their browser. Just keep it saved in your browser, and every time you think of something, you can submit that. We do highly encourage you to submit separate needs separately. So if you need someone to pack food at the food bank, but then you also need somebody to help with social media, put that as 2 separate submissions, because again, you're going to see them separately. Good point. Yeah. So for anyone on Zoom, are there still people on? So anyone on Zoom, Jonathan was just, so Jonathan back here, this is one of our amazing student employees. He actually sees every submission you put in, and then he transfers it into EagleLink, which is what Michael and Lindsay were talking about earlier. And he makes sure that it looks good, it includes all the right information, that everything matches up. And so he was just saying that if it's the same opportunity on different days, like packing food on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you don't need to do it separately. Like you don't need to do 1 submission for Monday, 1 submission for Wednesday, and 1 submission for Friday. You just need to do separate submissions for separate tasks. And Jessica.
I just wanted to say that I do orientation for all of our incoming students.
Here, I'm going to give you the mic.
I just wanted to say that I do orientation for all of our incoming students to get them like pumped up and excited and knowledgeable about service learning, internships, and career development. And one of the things I do is we do an interactive part at the end, and we actually go onto the service learning website and we click on the find service learning opportunities, which is what the form he's talking about that you're filling out. I just want you to think, if there's about 100 opportunities that the students can see, what do you think is going to draw their attention to yours? Your picture. What picture you put. Put something that's like, remember we talked about putting a face on the issue? Put something that's going to draw them in. Sometimes you're competing with cats and dogs and kids. All right. If your organization works with cats and dogs and kids, then make sure you have a big picture of your cats and dogs and pigs. And big thing, like they will pick things with beautiful scenery. They will pick things with cats and dogs and kids.
And Jonathan can help you too. Sometimes yes. Jonathan will help you find a good picture that, because sending your flyer isn't a good idea because it's that big. No one's going to read it or be able to read it.
Yes. So just take that into consideration. Like what you post, if there's 100 options, they're going to be like, that looks good. They won't even open it if they're attracted to other things before they're attracted to yours. So think about how you're presenting that information, because we want them to open it up. And there's 99 opportunities right now. So it matters.
And that's over the summer. Now, the reason for me bringing up this right now is to enter as much as you possibly can think of that you need for the fall. Because remember, students are looking most heavily in the first couple of weeks of the semester. So you really want to be in there. If you wait and submit it later, you'll still get some exposure, but not as much as you will if you're in there from the first day of class. Yeah.
I just realized them right there. Virtual volunteer needed, yep.
Yes, at EHAS. Yeah.
Are we still submitting on a semester by semester basis?
So the question is, should you submit semester at a time? I usually encourage 2 semesters. So I would say fall, and if you already know things for spring, go ahead and put it in there. But your fall is going to get the most attention. Yeah, so Jonathan reaches out to you, and before, if it's ongoing, he'll reach out and say, do you still need this? And if not, then we'll take it off. And Amy.
Is that the appropriate place to put freeze or
I think you came in after we talked about internships a little bit. As a reminder, the internships will not live anywhere in the service learning world. So those are a separate thing completely. Internships, you'll want to talk with the Office of Internships and Cooperative Programs. And you can always send me an email to get connected, or their email address is just icp@fgcu.edu. So internships and cooperative programs, so icp@fgcu.edu. And they'll help you get connected in all the right ways, write your internship position description and all that. Other questions? Okay, so if you want to jump back to the PowerPoint, a couple other updates that I wanted to share. There will be a continued stronger increase on career readiness, as I was mentioning earlier, and stronger focus on career readiness. And so we will continue to talk about that, especially in our November workshop when we talk about that transition of the service learning requirement. Skills-based badging program rolling out. So you may have heard, connected to the career readiness in many ways, FGCU is very excited about this fall. We're rolling out kind of a micro-credentialing. It's a badging program where students can earn badges for specific skill sets. And so we have an entire FGCU website. You can Google FGCU, I think, badging.
If you can go to the FGCU homepage and type in digital badging or digital badges into the search box, it'll pull it up, and they align with those career readiness skills.
Yeah. So lots of stuff focusing toward career readiness. We talked about the changes coming, so come back in November. We will be rolling that out. The water school is opening. We mentioned that. And the other piece here is that, we talked about this being a partnership and a relationship between your agency and FGCU and all of us working together. Part of that is also making sure that you have your voice heard in our FGCU presidential search that is underway. There are opportunities for the community to have their voice heard. There is, just like there's an entire website, FGCU website for the badging program, there's an entire FGCU website for the presidential search happening right now. So be sure to also just Google FGCU presidential search and you'll see that website. It has everything outlined there. So any information you need to know is there. Any questions? I mean, really questions about anything before we do introductions and let you mix and mingle for the rest of the time. Any questions about anything? Karen? Oh, that is a good question. The land clearing that is happening at near the entrance, the one entrance, at this point, what has been shared campus-wide, and I think externally too, is that they had a permit to be allowed to clear the land, and that permit was about to expire. It's for potentially future use, but they had to use it under the permit before the permit expired.
I was wondering if anybody in the room had any suggestions about how to get coworkers on board with working with college students. Most of my coworkers just don't want to date with them.
And you can be totally transparent and honest. Have they shared what their specific reservations might be?
Part of it is how much supervision they feel like they would need, how much, I have to teach them how to do stuff. And then the other one would be accountability, like actually having them show up once they're done with training. We have had quite a few FGCU students come out for training and then.
What agency are you with?
The National Shell Museum.
Shell Museum. So that's a great thought. I'll open it up for everyone to share here in just a second, but I do want to share or again clarify that service learning is on the end of students bringing the skill sets they have versus an internship where that's on the side of you providing training to a student who is hoping to go into that area of work as a career. So I would encourage you to share back with your colleagues that service learning, those students should be bringing skill sets. And when you post opportunities in the database, you're looking for students who have that skill set already. So, if that's cleaning up and mulching, then they have those skill sets. But if it's something more specific, like social media help or research or something like that, you're going to be doing that. And I think the other piece that Melody was sharing is, finding the people with the right credentials. So being able to share with your colleagues, like, you're not just, if we get you connected to a course or to a faculty member, hopefully that would bring a little bit more credibility and a little bit more stability from semester to semester to be able to work first and foremost with the faculty member who's then working with the students. So that might help you a little bit. Other thoughts? I saw a hand or two about.
I just wanted to add with that part. If you are connecting with a student group that's within a course, that adds also, he was talking about that adds accountability.
Yes.
Because they're getting graded and they can't just drop the ball. Volunteers, if they're just volunteers, they can show up or they cannot.
Like any volunteer in the entire world.
Like any volunteer, right? So you can come or you cannot. We do have something in place though that they should never be going and getting trained. They never got service learning hours if all they did was go to a training. We have a system in place that says if you are getting trained and someone is putting their time and energy and effort and resources into you, you have to at least serve for the amount of hours that you got trained back in return, and then we'll count it all. But you can't go get, 5, 10, 20 hours of training and then never serve back again. They won't get any service hours. Well, because you wouldn't verify it, so they won't get any service learning hours for that. So that's helpful. But if you're working with a faculty member, I know my students are required to include me in the emails that are going out to potential community partners, and I literally have them say, my professor, Jessica Ray, is copied in this email, so that you're like, ooh, ding, 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 this is the one I want to do, because this is a faculty. There's a faculty member who I can talk to, who I can be connected with if I have questions, compliments, or concerns.
As far as educating your coworkers about why it might be a good idea to accept students, I deal with this with my coworkers as well because it's easier for them to do it themselves. We're teaching them about how to plant, what weeds are weeds and what are not weeds, and they're all worried about what a student might come in and do if they're let loose. So, I'm sorry, that's just the way they think about it. So, it helps them if I can connect the fact that if they do it all themselves, it takes 4 hours. If they have 4 people with a reasonable, equal amount of skill, they can get that 4 hours worth of work done in 1 hour. So they're multiplying their time. They're also have an opportunity to teach. Obviously, they care about this cause because they work for the organization. They have an opportunity to teach the students awareness about what's going on in the world, why ECHO, in my case, why ECHO exists, why are they working here? They obviously care about people and hunger. If they can teach a student is at the beginning of their career, at the beginning of their life, they make an impact on that student, and then that student decides to change their career and work in sustainable agriculture for the rest of their life. So it's not just, I feel like because ECHO started out kind of like a small, very small thing, people would come and be like, I want to help. So then we created a volunteer opportunity for people who wanted to help because the people came in already knowing what was going on. And now we're working with FGCU. The students don't necessarily know anything about our mission. So it's our job to train the students why they should care. And then it's our job to train my staff member coworkers on why they should engage with the students because they're multiplying their time. They're sharing our mission. They're giving these students opportunities to see the world in another way that's very different because we work with overseas, very poor, small-scale farmers. Most American students have no idea what that's like. And so if they have a chance to tell them stories about, I went overseas and I experienced this and tell them stories and create that community and that relationship with them, then you're changing that student's life as well as the people that we serve.
Thanks.
Hi. So one thing that I do in my clinic, I have a recurring need, which is always, for example, translators, clinic aides, etc. Before I post a need or search for volunteers, I first go to, for example, that department that maybe you have an issue with. Let's say, for example, my marketing department. Hey, do you have any specific need, for example, social media templates? I think you guys touched up on that. Brochures with QR. Do you have any need? Do you have any specific need? They say, you know what? Yeah, I think I'll need a couple people because now we're gearing into the high season and I need all these brochures done. Trust me, if that employee has that need and you get them 4 or 5 volunteers that are marketing driven or whatever the case may be and has all the knowledge in social media, they will appreciate that versus you having, like, for example, hey, I have 2 volunteers here. You know, I think that surprise factor catches some employees, you know, working in nonprofits, we wear many hats. So then having 10 more volunteers is like, oh. So I want to say engage your employees first. Hey, do you have anything in specific or any projects that you want to work on? I also, what I do when I have new volunteers, I don't have them just start. Okay, first day here, come in. I first do a tour of my clinic and I ask them, do you want to be with patients all day or do you want to be with maybe marketing people or my executive director or helping me or assisting me? And sometimes they say, you know what, I don't think I want to be with patients all the time. I think I want to be more into administration. So then I kind of have an idea of where or with who to put them. So I think that may help a little bit. When I started in nonprofit, I was like, oh, volunteers, okay, I have 20. Here, people. And then you have volunteers that are all just sitting down on their phone, idle time. You know, so that helped me more engage both employees and volunteers.
I just want to add real quick. My name's Caroline, and my coworker is going to speak, I think, right after. But we're both from the Cape Coral Fire Department, so it's a little bit different than just a regular nonprofit, given that it's government. But government has its own kind of structure that's pretty interesting. But something that I saw, I mean, we're very lucky that a lot of our coworkers are very progressive, and they were looking forward to bringing in we have a great volunteer program, but then also student volunteers, and then obviously these now student service learning opportunities. I think Justin did a really good job of defining the difference between service learning opportunities and internships, but something that's common across both of them is that we want to make sure that these are meaningful opportunities for both ends of it, not just the students, but also the employees. And so that's that question, how do I make this meaningful for them? Something that one of my coworkers told me previously was he had noticed, he goes, I love where I work and I love my job, but something that I'm lacking is any type of supervisory experience because just within our government structure, that's not something that was applicable to his job. So by us adding in the opportunity to now be a community partner with FGCU and being able to bring on students for service learning opportunities, that was a really cool way for him to get some type of service or supervisory experience that he wouldn't traditionally get in his current role. So also maybe seeing not just what those immediate needs of your employees and your coworkers are, because that's a great way to match those project opportunities, but then also seeing maybe, you know, like we said, meaningful for both the student and our employees, what their individual goals are for their professional development, and see if there's a way you can align that with this project as well.
And by the way, I'm Jason Oriana, the Community Risk Reduction Specialist for the Cape Coral Fire Department. Another way to do that is, you know, the change isn't going to be, you know, you're not going to bring on your first set of service learning opportunity students and the buy-in be right away. Sometimes that'll take a cycle or two. So the buy-in has to be a proof of concept for them, knowing that it's working. And in addition to that is another set of buy-in for them is aligning your mission that you already have structured with the mission of taking on these students doing service learning, right? Because I'm pretty sure all of your missions include going out into the community and outreaching and connecting with people. That is the same exact impact that you're having with the students. And twofold, they're getting that work experience as well. We were that kind of proof of concept in terms of them wanting even more students to come on, because now we're both full-time. having started as students. So.
Hey, look at all these great testimonies. I love it. I love it. So let's go around and do some introductions. Actually, if you want to just pass the mic over to Antonello. And just share your name, the organization you're with, and if you just listen out, I'm sure there'll be organizations that you definitely want to connect with before you head out, and we'll go from there. If you want more food, feel free to come up. There is plenty, and we'll just take it away.
Yes, Antonello Castaldi, Healthcare Network.
Thank you. Okay. Introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Paulina Sumner, and I work in the Office of Service Learning. Right now, I'm doing all of our events, so if you need stuff like that, you can talk with me.
My name is Olivia Pena. I'm the supervisor of the Florida Alliance Eye Clinic.
Amy, we're coming.
My name is Amy Burrell Cormier, and I'm the volunteer manager at the Naples Therapeutic Riding Center. So we do equine therapies.
My name is Erica Burson. I'm the volunteer and development coordinator at Abuse Counseling and Treatment Inc. in Fort Myers.
My name is Ashley Sumsky, and I am the education coordinator at the Wonder Gardens of Bonita Springs.
I'm Abigail Jackson. I'm the volunteer and hospitality coordinator at Echo Global Farm in North Fort Myers.
My name is Kimberly Lawrence, and I'm the AmeriCorps Vista for Keep Charlotte Beautiful and director of Winter Garden Food Pantry.
Rhonda Harvey from Keep Charlotte Beautiful.
Trish Fancher, executive director of Keep Lee County Beautiful.
My name is Catherine Hallinan, and I'm the outreach coordinator at Community Pregnancy Clinics.
Jessica Deering, volunteer program manager at the Naples Zoo.
Hi there, Karen Canetta, Collier County Museums, and we do have 5 free museums in Collier, one in Immokalee, one on Marco Island, one in Everglades City, and 2 in Naples.
Hi, my name is Annette Trahanis, and I'm with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation.
And I'll jump us back to this table real quick. Oh, I'll give you a second to chew.
Hi, I'm Robin Anton. I'm the executive director with Protected Harbor.
Hello, my name is Amy Molsey. I'm the development and community outreach organizer for Alliance for the Arts.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ortiz. I'm the volunteer center coordinator at United Way. This is only my 3rd day, so if you knew Daniel, I'm his replacement. But he's still there. He's great.
I was like, huh?
Yeah, he's still there.
Good morning. I'm Russ Ringland, Future Forestry Corporation. We plant trees and we teach people how to plant trees.
Hi, I'm Kim Verano. I'm with Interfaith Charities. I'm the volunteer and community outreach liaison. And if you don't know, we have a food pantry. We're right down the road in San Carlos Park. We also provide financial assistance with electric bills and water bills. And we partner with United Way. We're a United Way house, so we offer free tax preparation through their Vita Tax program.
Hello, everybody. My name is Julia. I'm the operations coordinator for Help a Diabetic Child. Our mission is to strive to ease the burden emotionally and financially for children and young adults, college students too, to ease the burden that diabetes holds on them. So we realize that as much as we help younger children, young adults in college, that's a big transition phase for them, entering a new job, or maybe they're at the age where they're no longer on their parents' insurance. So that transition will also help them as well.
Thank you. Want to take it away?
Hi, I'm Tina Fleming. I work over at Golisano Children's Hospital, and I am an injury prevention educator for the youth advocacy program as a youth advocate.
Hi, my name is Jessie Wood. I am the founder of Drinks for Democracy of Southwest Florida. It is a nonprofit aimed at spreading election education and political literacy. There are a lot of people who are, in that 20 to 35 range who really have absolutely no idea what is going on and how elections even work. So that is what the aim of Drinks for Democracy of Southwest Florida is.
Hi, I'm Whitney Herod. I'm the volunteer coordinator at Revs Institute. We're a museum, an automotive museum, as well as dedicated to the preservation of automotive research. So we have a huge archive and library as well.
Hello, I'm Jane Gresh, and I'm a volunteer with Whitney at Revs Museum and do the interviewing of many of the potential volunteers.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tom Dussault. I'm also from Revs Institute in Naples, and we welcome anyone who would like to come visit us, as a matter of fact. And it's been thanks for running this today. We've really learned how to, I think, engage, and we're very excited about bringing on more volunteers.
Hi, I'm Tara Bodie. I'm an assistant principal at San Carlos Park Elementary School right down the road.
Hi, my name's Angel Kelly. I work at the Crew Land and Water Trust, and I'm the environmental educator, and we provide education and outreach to our local 60,000 acre watershed.
Hello, I'm Kelly Oakety. I'm with the Mission Church over in Babcock Ranch called the Community Church. I serve on the vision board. And hello, Ron. We are almost 3 years coming September, and we're looking forward to bringing together multi-generations in Babcock Ranch through faith service and community outreach.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Mensch. I'm the senior marine biologist at the Bailey Matthews National Shell Museum. We're a nationally accredited natural history museum out on Sanibel. We don't have any affiliation with the Shell factory, which is usually the confusion.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Fairman. I work with United Way. I am the CPS Expanded Learning Manager for Franklin Park Elementary, and we are able and have been blessed by the volunteer opportunities from FGCU.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cornell Bunting. I'm the founder of EAS. It's an organization that helps to create self-reliance and a growth mindset for disadvantaged youth.
Good morning. My name is Victoria Gillard. I'm the Community Partnership Schools Manager at Fort Myers Middle Academy with United Way.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel. I serve as the Youth and Community Engagement Coordinator for Lutheran Services Florida, where we provide residential services for families in need, substance abuse, truancy, emotional abuse, all types of things.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marissa Houston. I am the Outreach and Youth Mentor Coordinator for Lutheran Services Florida.
Excellent. Did we get everybody? Did I miss anybody? All right. Well, this is the end of our formal time, but we end with the introductions as a time for you to have the next 20, 25 minutes that we're in this room, or as long as you're able to stay, to talk with one another, to mix and mingle a little. There's still more food. Feel free to grab more and enjoy. Talk with us if you have more questions. Any final questions or thoughts before we wrap up? Everybody good? Yeah.
So my daughter volunteered somewhere else where they allowed travel time as part of
That's a great question.
So does that work with FGCU volunteers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question is, does travel time to the service learning opportunity count toward the hours? It does not for our requirement here. And we can talk more about that, but it does not. Short answer, no. Yeah.
So in regards to safety issues, we conduct a monthly tennis crew in Babcock Ranch, and in so far as there is a concern, how does that work insofar as safety volunteers?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So safety, risk, liability, those sorts of things. Students sign a waiver when they participate in an event that we are leading, but that is to cover FGCU. So our waivers cover us. We always encourage you to have your own risk and liability, either waiver or however your organization needs to handle that, done on site when students arrive, so that you're sure that whatever you need done is covered at that moment. If you have a waiver, if your organization does require a waiver, you are welcome to put a note in the submission when you submit that form we were showing, and it goes to Jonathan. Jonathan reviews it. You're welcome to put a note in there that says, if you are under 18, you can download the waiver here, or you'll have to, have a waiver that's signed by a parent. We certainly do have students who are under 18, and so even for our own events, we always include something that says, if you are under 18, download the waiver and bring it with you signed by a parent or guardian. So we would encourage you to do the same.
Justin, I have just one quick question. If I've submitted opportunities in the past, do I have to keep submitting them each new semester, or do they stay on? I didn't see it on there, so I'm wondering because I didn't resubmit.
Yeah, if it's an ongoing opportunity, Jonathan will reach out to you and say, is this still ongoing? Do you still have a need? Okay. If he doesn't hear back from you, it'll usually get pulled. Okay. Or if you say no, it'll get pulled. Okay. But yes, every semester you should just check back in and say, is that still there? It's also a really good idea for you to log into that occasionally and make sure it is how you want it to look and everything is correct.
Great, thank you.
Anything you want to add to that, Jonathan? Because you see them all day.
Check. Oh, we're not there. Maybe that's
yeah. Yeah.
What about? I see the difference between volunteers and interns. What about getting gift cards or something for travel, like little gas cards or something? Because
yeah.
A lot of the students don't have gas is expensive now.
Exactly.
Half an hour, 30 minutes, 30 miles.
You can certainly give incentives such as a gas card to get to and from, anything like that. The line is only drawn when they're paid for their experience. So they cannot be paid for their service learning experience. But certainly, gas cards, or sometimes agencies will say, hey, can I give them 2 tickets to our gala because they're helping? Absolutely. Helps also build that relationship. Yeah.
You just said they can't be paid for service learning. Can they be paid for internships?
Yes.
They can't be. Okay.
Yes, that's encouraged.
Yeah. It's much easier to recruit them if you're paying them for internships. It's a hard sell, and they can get paid to do this one, and this one's for free.
Like a price point or a rate?
I mean, based on, I've worked with a lot of, not necessarily in my company right now, but usually it's 12 to 15 being the more likable one, just because right now that is the way they can actually afford to continue the internship and still provide for themselves. But 15 is a really good one.
And I was just going to say, if you have questions like that, our director of internships and cooperative programs can even back that up with, the research that says this is what the current rate is in Southwest Florida, and this is what ours are typically going for.
Research speaks.
Yes.
Other questions? These are great questions. All right. Well, feel free to mix and mingle. Enjoy the food. Thank you for being here. Hopefully we'll see you, if not before, we'll see you on November 3rd at the next workshop.